Chapter 31, Sage Mode. Fukazaku thought Ryo would be really sad to hear this news. He didn't expect him to stay so calm. Is it because he doesn't really understand the power of Sage Mode? Jiraiya wondered. Anyway, he and Minato looked at each other and decided not to tell him about its value for now, to avoid making him feel sad. However, it wasn't the case. Ryo understood that when using his ice he's becoming part of nature itself, and he had no need for Sage Mode. What does natural energy bring to his mind? The Juubi. Ryo remembered clearly that Kurama told Naruto about the Juubi being natural energy. What does talking about the Juubi bring up? Kaguya. The way this ice mode that Ryo has been described actually makes it a possibility that it could be grown into a level comparable with that of Kaguya's powers. Yes, he doesn't have energy that comparable with the Juubi, but his ice mode if well controlled can become something comparable to it, as he can use all of the natural energy around him. Could this be evolved in other ways, like turning his Sharingan into a Rinnegan? Ryo felt that he was, for the first time, appreciating properly the trump card given to him when crossing over. Fukazaku-sama, what should I do to learn the Sage Mode? Ryo asked as if he didn't know what to do. Ryo-chan, if you want to learn too, you need to go to one of the three sacred sage regions, Mount Myaboku, Shikotsu Forest, and Ryokai Cave. You already are a contractor of our clan, so Mount Myaboku always welcomes you. Boss, do you think that the kid can learn Senjutsu? Yes. As I said before, Ryo's special mode protects him from being overwhelmed by natural energy. He just needs to learn to absorb it. But you said he can never learn Sage Mode. How can he go there to study it? Minato and Jiraiya intended on hiding the benefits of Sage Mode from Ryo, as not being able to learn it shouldn't be a small blow to him. However, they never thought that Pa would agree that goes to learn it in Mount Myaboku. He knew that Ryo can't enter it and promised him to let him practice it. All people present became puzzled by this. Ryo-chan can't enter Sage Mode indeed, but he doesn't need to. His affinity for natural energy in his own mode exceeds Sage Mode, but he needs to not rely on his chakra. I don't know if, in the future, this will be better or worse for him. Fukazaku-sama, you said that I can't enter the Sage Mode after ice elementization. Then can you tell me, if I lift it off like this, would that be any different? As he finished his words, he got back to his normal status. Is this special status called ice elementization? It is a very suitable name, but I'm afraid you can enter Sage Mode even in your present state. Why? Ryo never thought that the answer would be that he can't. Two reasons, Ryo-chan. On one hand, you don't have enough chakra for it. Second, because you were already baptized with natural energy when you were still learning to refine chakra. When you first refined chakra, I'm pretty sure that you've had more chakra than most people your age. Ryo recalled the first time he extracted chakra. He had really high levels for a 4-year-old. Even for an Uzumaki that age, it shouldn't be so huge. However, over the course of the following years, his chakra levels grew at a normal rate. He was always exceeding his peers, but that was only due to his great head start. Yes, indeed I've had more. Being baptized with natural energy is definitely a good thing for the average person, but it is not necessarily ideal for you. Your own natural energy absorption rate should already be hyper-fast. With baptism, it became even faster. Absorbing natural energy too quickly won't give your chakra time to merge with it, forcing you into what you call ice elementization whenever you try to enter Sage Mode. After listening to Pa's words, Ryo's eyes lost their glow. It seems that he can't ever reach this goal of his. Ryo still craved the power increase delivered by Sage Mode. But it seems he can only use ice with natural energy. The problem with that is that he'll probably have to rely only on his chakra for other releases. Ryo felt that he was imprisoned in this 7-year-old body of his. He is doomed with being limited with his body's maximum chakra. Now that maximum is barely on the level of a special jounin. The problem with having such a body can't be solved for now, but the overconsumption of chakra for elementization can be solved by learning Senjutsu. This got Ryo excited for the future, for he will be able to use many high-level ice jutsus without using chakra. He estimates that this should be enough for him to fight Kushina in her cloak mode, and while she's almost on a cage level with that, Ryo still wants more. The Third World War is no small deal. Fukazaku-sama, when can we start? Ryo asked him impatiently. At any time, as long as Jiraiya-chan agrees. Me? I have no objections. This little devil is a Yamanaka, and an apprentice of Kushina. Learning senjutsu would only improve his strength, and that's good for Konoha's sake. Jiraiya always had Konoha above all. He knew that the Inochikacho clans have always been loyal to the village, and that Kushina is the heir of the Will of Fire. Her disciples shouldn't be bad. And this kid is the backbone of the Konoha hospital. He was very happy to agree. Well then Ryo-chan, prepare yourself, and 3 days later, you'll be reverse summoned by Ma. Okay, thank you so much Fukazaku-sama. If there's nothing more, I'll be gone. Boss, take care. Jiraiya answered him. Fukasaka waved at everyone and returned to Mount Myaboku. Ryo, don't practice tomorrow. Go with Kushina and buy some M.R.Ps and some food pills. Minato patted on Ryo's shoulder as he told him that advice. His words came with his own memories, and brought back some to Jiraiya's mind as well. Both of their faces turned green. Ryo also was reminded by Minato's words of the food consumed in Mount Myaboku. Kushina-nichan, please. Let's go shopping with me tomorrow. Okay. But what happened to them? Kushina was puzzled about what happened to the other 2 contractors, as she didn't know about that food. I don't know either. They just mentioned Mount Myaboku. That's it. It may be because the food there isn't delicious. Is that it, Minato? Kushina asked her boyfriend. Yeah, that's right. Minato just wanted to stop talking about this topic. Kakashi, tomorrow you will accompany me too. Ryo remembers suddenly that Kakashi was being ignored by everyone. Kakashi, on the other hand, is continuing to work on Rei's non. Hearing Ryo's words, he stopped and nodded. Ryo has been living in Konoha now for over 7 years. This is the first time in this life that he takes a step into the outside world. Chapter 32, The Uzumaki's Fuinjutsu. The next day, Kushina went out and got a lot of food for Ryo, with plenty of food pills as well. Kakashi and Ryo were walking behind her, discussing further development of Chidori. In the evening, Ryo told his mother Chintz that he wanted to go to Mount Myaboku for training. Although she didn't want to let him go, she knew that this was the only way for her son to evolve. She was able, as his mother, to read through his mind. She just nodded in agreement. On the next day, Jiraiya and the usual 4 met up in the 3rd training ground. As usual, Minato worked on his Flying Thunder God, Kakashi practiced Rei's non, and Kushina taught Ryo about seals. As Kushina didn't know for how long Ryo will be gone, and she already has finished teaching him 5 elements seal and the evil sealing method. Ryo doesn't have enough time to apply what he's learning right now. He must open his Sharingan, watch and record details, and then do the application later on at his own pace. Ryo, the next seal we'll study is one of the few S-class seals of the Uzumaki clan. Kushina stood up as she talked about it. What is it, Eni-san? It's the yin seal. This technique was originally developed for Uzumaki women to keep their young appearance and look youthful forever. But after being further developed by Mito Abakan and Tsunade-nichan, the advanced Hyakugo seal could have been adjusted to make them use it for fast recovery during fights. Ryo knew the yin seal all too well. Tsunade and Sakura used it to store a large amount of chakra over a period of time in the seals on their foreheads. Ryo thought that the lasting youth was a well-welcomed side effect of the seal, but it seems like it was the main motive. In both of the worlds he has lived in, eternal youth is women's greatest dream. Kushina-nichan, can I use such a seal? Ryo couldn't resist the appeal of the S-class seal. Of course you can. But for male users it will only store chakra and then release it for a moment. Long-term youth and regulating metabolism for recovery are effects limited to women. How long can a man maintain that burst of chakra-nichan? The record is around 10 minutes. Ryo understood why he never saw men use such techniques. After years if storing chakra in the seal, one gets 10 minutes, with no special jutsus like Tsunade's creation rebirth. Oinichan, this technique is a bit lame. What do you mean? Kushina often hears strange words come out of Ryo's mouth, but what he's saying now is quite reasonable. I mean it's of no benefit for me, it might be a waste to even use it. I mean, as you're saying, this does nothing for me it seems. It's an S-class seal but I can't get anything out of it. You don't have to learn it then. I'll just engrave it for you. Hearing that Ryo wasn't interested in this seal, Kushina didn't try to force him into learning it. Instead, she engraved a diamond-shaped seal on his arm. Even though they've known each other for just a few months, few people were as close as Ryo to Kushina. She had no holds barred on what to teach him. Ryo spent the whole day listening to her explaining seals. Excluding the Biju sealing techniques, Kushina taught Ryo the basics of all major seals. Minato. Come here. After she showed him the double tetragram seal, Kushina seemed hesitant for a moment, and then called her boyfriend. After the two negotiated for a bit, he was nodding in agreement. Ryo, the Uzumakis have also a forbidden seal. After consulting with Minato, we decided to teach you this technique together. She then looked the way of Minato, who picked up on her words. Ryo, this technique is called Reaper Death Seal. It can only be used once, and it's truly forbidden. Minato looked more serious than ever. Yes, with this technique, the user will cause both his and his enemies' deaths. After it's completed, the Shinigami will swallow their souls, and both will die, and spend an eternity fighting each other in his belly. They can never be set free. Kushina's explanation was chilling to the bone. Ryo knew all about this technique. It was what was used to split the Kyuubi. Actually, in the manga, only the Rikudo Sennin and the Shinigami were able to split the Biju. The former split the Juubi into 9 Bijus, and the latter split Kurama into 2. The Shinigami was to Ryo a being that might even surpass the Rikudo Sennin. Ryo was more or less of an atheist. To him, a god is just another man who just happened to accomplish what other people couldn't, or more of a transcendence of a man to a new level of being. Ryo, this is a really dangerous technique, and I hope you'll never have to use it. I understand, Nisan. After Ryo accepted learning the seal, Minato went on to show him the hand seals involved. The sequence was only too long to be memorized: snake rightward arrow, boar rightward arrow, ram rightward arrow, rabbit rightward arrow, dog rightward arrow, rat rightward arrow, bird rightward arrow, horse rightward arrow, snake rightward arrow, clap hands. After that he was able to capture the sequence. Ryo became the second non-Uzumaki ever to learn this exclusive forbidden seal, with Minato being the first. After the destruction of the village hidden by whirling tides, most of the Uzumakis were already dead. Most living ones had fake last names. That seal was already a rarity waiting to be forgotten. There were no more people to enforce the hiding of the secret. Kushina taught it before to Minato, and now he's showing it to Ryo. Without them noticing, the night fell upon them. Tomorrow is Ryo's departure day. Minato invited all of them for barbecue as a parting gift to Ryo. Then, Kushina Nichan, Minato Nisan, Kakashi, I will see you again. After the barbecue, Ryo and the bunch bid each other farewell. Going back to his home, he found his mother already asleep. Ryo didn't bother her. He just spoke to Inoichi, who just got back from a mission, and told him to take care of her. Early in the morning the next day, Ryo used summoning and summoned Fukazaku. Ready, Ryo-chan? Yes, Fukazaku-sama. Then let's go. Ryo saw a huge lotus before him. Looking around, he was no longer in Konoha. Chapter 33, Practice begins. Pa, is this the child you told me about? The one who does have to be afraid of having natural energy swallow him. While he was gazing into the scene of Mount Mayaboku around him, Ryo was interrupted by a sudden voice. Yes, Ma. Haven't I told you? Ryo-chan has a special state, called ice elementization. When in that state, he becomes an iceman using the wind and water attributes of natural energy. Fukazaku explained to Shima. Well, you did tell me, but I need to see it. Kid, let me see this special state. Shima was carrying what looked like a vegetable basket, from which a few insects jumped on Ryo. He nodded and activated the ice mode. Like Fukazaku when he saw this for the first time, Shima closed her eyes and tried to perceive him. It's real, with my senjutsu perception I can only see a block of ice. This is incredible. Well Ma, Ryo-chan is here for the first time, shouldn't you prepare him a hearty breakfast? You don't need to bother yourself. I've brought many m.r.ps along with me. Ryo remembered the bug meals from the anime and rushed to refuse. Well, don't be too polite. Don't be deceived by Ma's fierceness, her cooking is actually great. Fukazaku was trying to make Ryo feel at home. The latter could only try to smile. Ryo followed the two toads back to their place. When Ryo summoned Fukazaku, they were hunting for food in the mountains forest. Ryo-chan, make yourself at home. Take a seat, breakfast will be ready really soon. Fukazaku offered Ryo a cup of tea. Fortunately, Mount Miyaboku's tea is normal. After a little while, Shima brought in a large plate of worms and put it on the table. Come on Ryo, no need to be shy. Eat up, the two were enthusiastically looking Ryo's way. Ryo closed his eyes, took the insects and stuffed them in his mouth. And then he swallowed them whole. Fukazaku asked him, so Ryo, what do you think about the way that they taste? They taste good. Ryo was enduring his urge to vomit as he praised the taste of those insects. This made Shima smile. After breakfast, Ryo and Fukazaku went to the nearby oil pool. Ryo-chan, to practice the Sage Mode, you need first to be able to perceive and gather natural energy. You should let natural energy flow in and out of your body. In other words, you need to become one with nature. But Fukazaku-sama, I can't feel natural energy. Ryo interrupted Fukazaku. According to what he was saying, Ryo, who could use natural energy, should already be able to sense it. But Ryo doesn't. Ryo-chan, don't worry about it. Let me finish. You haven't studied the Sage Mode before. Even if you can use natural energy, you aren't necessarily able to understand it. What do you mean by that, Fukazaku-sama? Do I just need to understand it? By understanding it, you should be able to distinguish between it and between physical and spiritual energy. Ryo still didn't understand Fukazaku's words. He remembered that first step taken by Naruto to learn senjutsu was to stay motionless in order to sense natural energy. But Fukazaku is now focusing on making him understand it. Ryo-chan, come here. Fukazaku jumped to the edge of the pool. Ryo knew about this pool and how it was filled with mystical toad oil. Similarly to the manga, Fukazaku put some of the oil on Ryo's arm. However, Ryo didn't feel the flow of natural energy. When Naruto was painted with the oil, he felt the inflow of energy and his arm started to morph into a frog's limb. Ryo, however, didn't feel any inflow of energy, although his hand started morphing just like Naruto's. Fukazaku-sama, why is this happening? Ryo felt that this was strange. Natural energy is clearly flowing into him, but he was totally unaware of it. Your first step to learning senjutsu is to understand the difference between your chakra and natural energy. As he finished his words, he hit him with his stick to bring out the natural energy in his arm. Ryo-chan, you don't have to worry about being swallowed by natural energy, so use the oil as you want. Once ice elementization starts, it means that practice has failed. When that happens, start over, until you can distinguish between your three sources of energy. Ryo fully understood what his first task was. He began refining his chakra. Because the ice mode absorbs a lot of natural energy. When Ryo began refining his chakra, because he also was working on his ice affinity, he absorbed a lot of natural energy into his body. Whatever was left in his body of that natural energy formed within him a new chakra while he was refining it early in his life. It was indeed a combination of natural energy, physical energy, and spiritual energy. However, it wasn't in a 1:1:1 ratio. It wasn't senjutsu chakra. This allowed him to have absurdly high amounts of chakra. All of this is what was called by Fukazaku the natural energy baptism. And because his first encounter with natural energy was while he was refining chakra early on in his life, Ryo cannot distinguish between the three types of energy. After identifying the path he should take, he painted his body with toad oil and opened his Sharingan and observed the chakras flow within his body. A moment later, his body started morphing into the shape of a toad. Ryo's chakra flow wasn't influenced. When Ryo was about to fully turn into a frog, his chakra flow ceased, and his cells acquired the molecular structure of ice. At the beginning of ice elementization, Ryo discovered that a large amount of the energy accumulated in the body began to flow into his cells at that moment. Ryo knew that physical and spiritual energy won't be absorbed in that process. For the first time, he was able to feel this energy intuitively. After that, Ryo lifted this mode, and he continued applying toad oil. Once, twice. Ryo, who had no problem with working hard, couldn't count how many times he repeated it before finally identifying the feel of natural energy. Unlike physical and spiritual energy, natural energy had a different feel to it, like it was alive. After identifying it, he closed his eyes and felt the chakra flow in his body. He discovered that although his chakra does not contain natural energy, his body had some of it. Once he used ice elementization, that energy was used to complete the transformation. This energy had a peculiar attraction to the natural energy of the outside world. Ryo's intuition told him that it's the chief culprit behind his inability to enter Sage Mode. Chapter 34, Improving Ice Release. That natural energy in Ryo's body was activated by chakra. What he didn't expect was that natural energy didn't have to be deliberately guided to be able to merge with chakra. Whenever the chakra merged with that energy goes through a part of his body, that part will turn into ice, and the natural energy within that chakra will be reabsorbed. So after full ice elementization, all the natural energy within Ryo's body will be integrated into his ice body and it can be mobilized at any time. Ryo tried an ice release jutsu while in that elementization state. It was as Fukazaku described. The natural energy within his body is first to fluctuate. Then a part of it enters the water that he's about to freeze. What happens then is that the natural energy in the air would be attracted by Ryo's own natural energy. This pushes the external wind natural energy into the water, freezing it. Whenever the natural energy within him is fully consumed, as freezing requires a lot of natural energy, Ryo's body can't supplement it by external energy, so chakra is used as a self-regulatory mechanism. After some experiments, Ryo became certain that the key to his ice elementization was this internal natural energy. It was activated by chakra, and is attracted to external natural energy. But it didn't have the other effects of its regular counterpart. So he called Fukazaku, and told him about the progress he made. However, he concealed the part concerning this internal natural energy. Ryo-chan, you have already understood natural energy. Now you need to feel it around you. By feeling it flow into you using the oil, you must grasp that feeling and translate it into making it flow into you without the oil. Because he didn't have to worry that Ryo would be overwhelmed by natural energy, Fukazaku only came to help him when he needed guidance. He spent his times training Jiraiya elsewhere. In the manga, the time that took Jiraiya to master Sage Mode wasn't really precise. Ryo also didn't know when he was there to study it. Today, since they are both disciples in Mount Myaboku, so Jiraiya was actually in a way, Ryo's senpai. Jiraiya's first step, meaning entering Sage Mode with the help of the toad oil, was a success. Without using it, he could also sense and use natural energy. It's just that he wasn't able to balance it properly with his own chakra. Ryo, who understood well natural energy now, was actually pretty familiar with it. After all, he's been using it for ice mode for over 3 years. So it only took him a few days to sense the world's natural energy without the oil. Through all these days of practice, and especially after discovering the natural energy within his own body, Ryo has been thinking about finding a way to combine the 3 energy sources he has to enter Sage Mode. His only concern was his attempt will consume his natural energy. If he's willing to use Sage Mode, he'll have to find a way to supplement it. Ryo didn't want to experiment too much before solving this problem. He once again called Fukazaku, who was really impressed with his progress on arrival. For the next step in his training, Pa didn't give Ryo a precise method. But he suggested that he should sit down and get a feel for his ice mode. Ryo tried to use what he learned about the attraction of external natural chakra to his own, by exposing his natural energy to the outside world. The wind and water parts of the external natural energy were drawn to his own like moths into a flame. Using that gathered energy, he tried using ice release, and what happened was that none of his chakra was used except for what he needed for water release. The problem of overusing chakra in his ice mode was finally solved after all those years. Ryo felt finally at ease. But then he discovered the flaw of this technique. Because of the mobilization of part of his internal natural ninjutsu, he couldn't actually complete elementization. There was always some palm-sized part of his body that didn't turn into ice. Such a thing could be a fatal weakness for him in combat. Ryo reabsorbed his own natural energy, and the external one that he gathered began to dissipate slowly. If only I can gather it and store it. Ryo was thinking out loud. Kid, you can try using your yin seal. It was Jiraiya's voice appearing out of nowhere. Jiraiya-san, don't go around scaring people like that. Ryo looked back at Jiraiya. Kid, you've made great progress with your training. I just saw how you gathered so much natural energy. Boss just went home for dinner. So I came here to check out on you. Ryo was very grateful hearing this. Jiraiya has known him for just a few days and now he cares this much about him. He showed his gratitude. Don't mention it, little devil. Now, did you just say you want to store natural energy? Ryo nodded and said, Yeah, I have found a way to get a lot of natural energy fast, but no way to store it. So, you can try the yin seal that Kushina gave you. I was told by Minato that she taught you on how to use it. Jiraiya-san, it wasn't designed to store natural chakra, and it's not to be used frequently. Well, you can always try. If it turns out that you can store natural energy with it, I can help you change it, making it more usable. I've seen its use and development after all. Really, Jiraiya-san? Ryo never expected such a pleasant surprise. Of course, a sage always keeps his word. Now start trying to store natural energy. He pointed at him, telling him to start. Ryo repeated the same thing he did before. This time, he gathered his natural energy in his yin seal. This caused a crazy inflow of external natural energy into it. Ryo only took in the wind and water natural energy, and was able to actually fill 1% of his seal's storage. With his recovery rate, he'll be able to repeat this 100 times, and totally fill up the seal in 1 week. He was feeling the natural energy being trapped in the seal, and he knew it could seal natural energy. So Jiraiya went on and changed the release mode of the seal. After being changed by Jiraiya, the seal was still not comparable with that of Tsunade. It was releasable at will whenever it had chakra in it, with the ability to turn it off too. But its weak point was that it was only refillable after being totally drained. Chapter 35, Sage Mode. Afterwards, Ryo didn't stop injecting natural energy into the yin seal. It actually took him 10 days to saturate it. The amount of natural energy that his own gathered from around him actually fluctuated. That was what caused the 3 days delay. But that didn't stop Ryo from standing in awe of the power of nature. It would take man at least 2 years to saturate his yin seal. But with natural energy, it only took 10 days. Jiraiya didn't see it that way. To him, accumulating chakra into the yin seal, and accumulating natural energy are two completely different things. First, natural energy is inexhaustible, while a ninja's power supply is limited. Second, chakra is what's used for ninjutsu, not pure natural energy. From his point of view, using chakra to fill the seal is more practical than using natural energy. Translator note: what I understand from this is that since chakra is usually the bottleneck in fights, it's more practical to store it instead of natural energy. This doesn't necessarily apply to Ryo. After Ryo injected so much natural chakra in his seal, he realized what Jiraiya meant when saying that this energy source is inexhaustible. After saturating his yin seal, Ryo entered his ice elementization mode, liberating the natural energy within the seal. Natural energy was flowing intensely from Ryo's arm. He unleashed huge amounts of water. Freezing them didn't consume any chakra, even when using the Ice Dragon attack. After about 10 minutes, Ryo shut down the output of natural energy from Yin Seal. The stored amount was reduced by a fifth. Most of was released into the air, and with all his intensive freezing, Ryo used only a small portion of what was released. In other words, after merely 10 days of accumulating natural energy, Ryo was able to use ice without consuming chakra for a full 50 minutes. The problem of overconsumption of chakra when using ice release that plagued Ryo's life for close to 4 years now has been finally successfully resolved. This whole thing he's doing to practice Sage Mode was motivated by trying to solve this dilemma. Fukazaku said the Ryo can't reach Sage Mode. The main reason was that he absorbed too much natural energy from the outside. Now it is too late for him to get his 3 energy types in a 1:1:1 ratio to produce Senjutsu chakra. So Ryo wanted to try this out. If he could use as much physical and spiritual energy as his special internal natural chakra, would he be able to produce Senjutsu chakra? If he can, then he'll open his seal afterwards to supplement himself with natural energy to keep the balance. Fukazaku said that a ninja could easily distinguish between physical and spiritual energy, as they are both used in ninjutsu. It didn't take Ryo a lot of practice to figure it out as well. He channeled equal amounts of physical and spiritual energy to his own natural energy through his body. After the 3 sources reached the appropriate ratio, they began blending slowly. A new type of chakra was born within Ryo. Is this Senjutsu chakra? His eyelids began to look orange, his Sage Mode face looked like Naruto's. Ryo felt the changes in chakra within his body. Like in the manga, the performance enhancement granted by the Sage Mode was very substantial. His sensory and physical abilities were greatly boosted. Ryo activated his lightning chakra mode. At the same time, he released his Yin Seal. After doing so, his speed, power, and lightning releases were massively enhanced. His speed actually completely exceeded the speed in the Ice Lightning Chakra mode. Thunder release, Chidori Ryo observed a great evolution for this Jutsu as well. It wasn't just its power, even the sound of it became weak and inaudible. Kakashi said in the manga that Chidori was developed for the purpose of assassination. But throughout the story, both Chidori and Reikari have been mainly used in combat. Ryo understood why these techniques weren't used for assassination, that often when he learned them, they sounded too loud. To him, Chidori, as well as its derivative Reikari, were not perfected yet. Translator note: it's worth noting that Chidori was said to be efficient in assassination despite the loud sound, because of its speed. See chapter 113, page 15. But as Ryo added natural chakra into it, it became perfect for assassination. About 1 minute later, more or less, Sage Mode was automatically lifted. Ryo's chakra wasn't enough to maintain it anymore. No matter how much natural energy he could harness from his seal, he needed more chakra. After he regained his shape, Ryo entered Sage Mode again and again. This time he didn't use the Yin seal, and did not use his Thunder Chakra mode. Ryo's Sage Mode was always maintained for less than 2 minutes. Then he did another experiment, using the Sage Mode, Thunder Chakra mode, and Chidori. He lasted less than 1 minute. After determining his ability to maintain Sage Mode under different conditions, he stopped practicing. Now, he needs to consult with the 2 great sage toads. The next day he found Fukazaku training Jiraiya. Jiraiya couldn't still integrate himself with nature. This is not something Fukazaku could help with. Only Jiraiya can solve this for himself. What's the matter, Ryo-chan? Fukazaku already sensed him coming. Fukazaku-sama, I need to learn the Sage Mode fighting techniques with you. Ryo, didn't I say? You can't enter Sage Mode. What are you tall? Before he finished his words, Ryo entered Sage Mode. Fukazaku and Jiraiya were both stunned looking at the young Ryo. What was more shocking to Fukazaku was that Ryo's Sage Mode was perfect. He didn't expect him to even enter that mode, and now he doesn't just succeed, his Sage Mode is perfect. Then he noticed the natural energy coming out of the seal in Ryo's arm. Ryo-chan, are you absorbing the natural energy from this seal? Ryo did not tell Fukazaku about the special natural energy he had within him. So when he noticed the outflow of energy from the seal, he thought that Ryo was using it to control the natural energy flow. Ryo nodded without saying a word. Little devil, for how long can you maintain Sage Mode? Jiraiya asked him. No more than 2 minutes. Ryo-chan, you have too little chakra now. For now, Sage Mode won't be optimal for you. When you grow up enough, you'll have enough chakra to use it efficiently. Yes, Fukazaku-sama. But you really a genius, Ryo-chan, you actually came up with a way to control the flow of natural energy into your body. Boss, you're wrong. The genius is me, helping the kid with the seal so he could enter this mode. Jiraiya then laughed loudly. Jiraiya-chan, you can't even enter Sage Mode on your own. Just stick to practicing. Yes boss, Jiraiya was bummed out by Fukazaku's words. Ryo-chan, now I'll be teaching you Kawazu-Kumite, frog kata. Yes, thank you Fukazaku-sama. Chapter 36, Prophecy. Fukazaku admits that he has nothing special to teach Ryo about ninjutsu. What he can actually teach him is a taijutsu style called Kawazu-Kumite that is used by the toads of Mount Myaboku. This style was based on the use of natural energy around the user as an extension to one's body, thus creating an invisible attack. It is not difficult for toads to learn. They only need to guide the natural energy around them. After Fukazaku explained the details to Ryo, it didn't take him long to master it in his Sage Mode. One of the benefits of discovering such a style is that the Kawazu Tatake, frog slap, the main attack it used, didn't actually consume Senjutsu chakra. This meant that Ryo could use this taijutsu style freely in Sage Mode without losing time. Ryo-chan, now that you've also mastered Kawazu-Kumite, do you plan on returning to Konoha? Fukazaku-sama, I don't plan to return to Konoha for the time being. I want to stay in Mount Myaboku for a while. Ryo wanted to practice his for some time. He has already prepared enough M.R.PS and soldier grain pills to last him months. Over the next few months, he plans on becoming more familiar with Sage Mode. He didn't have that many jutsus in his arsenal. The amounts of chakra that he consumed before in his ice elementization were immense. so he didn't really feel the need to work on many water-based justice. But now that he solved that problem, what he learned over the years suddenly felt like it was no longer sufficient. Since Jiraiya was in Mount Myaboku, Ryo planned on taking this opportunity to learn some justice from him. Well, it's too late for practice this evening. My third child Gamahiro is back from outside the mountain. You can get to know him. Oh, I see, I hope I won't bother you tonight. Ryo was really polite to his elders. In the evening, Ryo, Jiraiya, and Fukazaku went back to the latter's place. There, Shima had already prepared a table full of insect dishes. Jiraiya looked frightened seeing the huge meal. Oh Jiraiya-chan, and Ryo, you're back. Hey Shima-sama. The two greeted Fukazaku's wife. You guys came here just in time. I just finished cooking. Come on in and eat with us. Shima welcomed them in warmly. No, we just finished eating, isn't it Ryo? Jiraiya winked at Ryo, who also didn't want to eat the insects. He nodded in affirmation. That's a pity, Jiraiya-chan anyway, you two come in so you get to meet Gamahiro. Shima sounded sad as she said that. Ryo remembered the huge body of Gamahiro in the manga. Fukazaku's place isn't big enough for him to get in. A moment later, a light blue toad jumped into the house, carrying two short swords. While he looked like he was 7 to 8 meters tall in the manga, his size now was nothing like Ryo remembered. At this time, he was the size a regular man, looking nothing like what he looked like in the during Pain's attack. Hiro-chan, say hello to the guests. Okay, Oyaji. Hi. My name is Gamahiro, you can summon me at any time. I'm Ryo Yamanaka, pleasure to meet you. Call me Jiraiya. After the three got acquainted, Ryo and Jiraiya learned from Gamahiro that he had been looking for weapons in Iron Country, until he was summoned back by Ajaji-sama. Ryo was still curious about the Great Toad Sage. He wanted to meet him in the future as he was the only one of the Great Sage Toads that he didn't meet. Speaking of Ajaji-sama, tell me, Jiraiya-chan. Did you find the child of the prophecy he told you about? Fukazaku suddenly asked him. It's basically confirmed. Jiraiya was so proud saying that. What prophecy? Gamahiro didn't hear about it yet. I'll tell you. The Great Toad Sage gave me a prophecy about one of my disciples. He said he will bring great change to the world of ninja. This change being peace and stability or destruction is unknown. That's really important. Even this one is a bit confused, Ajaji-sama's prophecies are never wrong. Gamahiro answered. Hiro-chan, how dare you to say that Gamahiro-sama is confused? Fukazaku wasn't happy with his son's use of words. After chatting a bit more, Ryo and Jiraiya left the place. They went to have dinner as they didn't want to eat insects along with the toads. More than a month later, Ryo was practicing Sage Mode. Jiraiya tagged along when Gamahiro came looking like he's in a hurry. Ryo, Ajaji-sama has had a prophecy about you. Gamahiro said that while wiping his forehead. Really? Please take me to him. Gamahiro led the way while Ryo and Jiraiya followed him to the Great Sage Toad. They stopped at an old house. Ryo-chan, Jiraiya-chan, come on in. Don't make Ajaji-sama wait for you for too long. Fukazaku's voice came from inside the house. Ryo entered right away. Hello Agama-senin. I'm Ryo Yamanaka. Oh welcome. The Great Sage Toad Gamamaru opened his eyes slightly looking at Ryo for a second. Now, I called you because, who are you again? The same scene from the manga was repeating itself. Despite the fact that Ryo was ready, he barely was able to hold his laughter. I'm Ryo Yamanaka, Agama-senin. Yes, it is Ryo. In my dream just now, you led a battle that determined the fate of all ninjas. Agama-senin, with whom did I lead it? After waiting for a long time, without the Agama-senin adding anything, Ryo could not help but ask. No, there have been many changes in the recent dreams. I can only see that you led the war. After leaving the house, Jiraiya looked at Ryo. He leads the war deciding the fate of all ninja? Who would even launch such a huge-scale war? Hey, little devil! Fukazaku-sama's prophecies never fail. This made me even more interested in you. Since you'll be leading the war determining the fate of all ninja, I'll do my best to guide you. Believing the prophecies of the Great Sage Toad, Jiraiya also believed that Ryo will be the one carrying the will of fire. Since he is a Yamanaka, he'll certainly be on Konoha's side. Actually, this responsibility of making Ryo strong was something he felt from the beginning. Ryo never believed in a predetermined fate. Even in this dark world, with great power, everything can change. Therefore, Jiraiya's words did even more than the prophecy to make him happy. Then Jiraiya-san, please teach me a lot. The chase of being Jiraiya's disciple would never be rejected by Ryo. This is the sensei of 2 Hokages, along with the leading figure of the strongest evil organization in Naruto. Genjutsu aside, he can't get a better teacher. And this is, after all, Ryo's favorite character of all times. Now he gets to learn from him. He was so grateful for the prophecy of the great sage Toad. Chapter 37, Water Release Ninjutsu. Kid, you can't do it. After learning about the prophecy of the great sage Toad, Jiraiya made a vow to train Ryo and guide him. However, Ryo never thought that this guidance would revolve around him doing push-ups in Mount Mayaboku. Ryo never actually did strength training at such intensity. In his first time, he didn't even manage to do 200 push-ups. That's a number topped even by many of this world's non-ninja trained kids, let alone the ones from big families who started to train at age 3. The Yamanaka are a family known for their spiritual power. To do their signature techniques, they work a lot on refining chakra, spiritual practice, and ninjutsu training. They don't have much time for physical training. Most of Ryo's training is based on speed, and even his lightning chakra mode is focused around that. Same goes for Chidori and its derivates. After that, came Rei's Non, a technique that also revolves around fast rotation. And then there was his work on his ice techniques. He focused on differentiating between physical, spiritual, and natural energy. That's how he became able to make ice without consuming chakra, something previously thought was impossible. Just looking at Ryo's previous experiences makes it easy to know his main deficiencies. What he needs the most right now is physical exercise. He could also benefit later on from learning more water release and wind release techniques. But now the more urgent thing is improving his physical qualities. Faster kid, run! Lying on his back, Jiraiya watched Ryo run back and forth. In order to help Ryo with his physical shape, they often went back to Konoha to get more food and food pills. With this, during the following 6 months, Ryo's physical strength and endurance improved substantially under Jiraiya's guidance. The most important impact of this improvement that he found out was that the amount of chakra he had was drastically increased. Ryo's chakra finally reached the level of a jonin. In the manga, the 12-year-old Naruto had a 100 times more chakra than Kakashi. Ryo has finally reached a 1% of his chakra at that age. Year 41, Ryo spent half of it training his physique, and now he's starting to learn water release techniques under the guidance of Jiraiya. So far, Ryo has already learned several water release techniques. Water trumpet, water waves, and water wall are all techniques taught to him by his mother, Yamanaka Chintz. Being one of the legendary Sunin, and having ninjutsu as his forte, Jiraiya couldn't actually count how justice he's learned over the years on the battlefields. So kid, has anyone taught you about the characteristics of water release? No, the water justice I've learned are one that my mother taught me. Okay. So what characteristics do you think one should focus on when using water-based attack? Well, I think they are its state, charge, and pressure. Ryo answered him after thinking a bit. Well, what states are there to water? Jiraiya's question was nothing hard to answer in Ryo's previous world. Even school children knew that water has 3 states, solid, liquid, and gaseous. With the first being ice, the second being regular water, and the third being vapor or fog. Ryo told Jiraiya what he knew from his previous world, and Jiraiya listened to his explanation. Cough. You're good kid. Now tell me, what do you know about the pressure and the charge of the water? Ryo shook his head. Although he has learned physics in his past life, he knew that in this world pressure could be looked at in a totally different way. He wanted to hear what Jiraiya would have to say about it from a ninja's perspective. Well, water pressure is essentially defined by how much water is going through a certain space, relative to how compact that space is. Think of it like a high-pressure water pump. The tighter the pump, the stronger the force generated by the passage of water, and the more lethal it is. It's like the relationship between how sharp a knife is and how lethal it is. That's how the second Hokage made his water-severing wave. Hearing Jiraiya's explanation, Ryo understood how the Hokage clan's water gun jutsu worked, and how Fikazaku killed Pain's chameleon. Great Jiraiya-san, how about the charge's role? The benefits of mastering charge are best manifested in the Great Waterfall Jutsu. It simply refers to how much water is created with chakra. After understanding what he should look for when working on water release, the first jutsu Ryo worked on with Jiraiya was the B-grade Water Dragon Whip. This jutsu's mastery revolved around maximizing pressure. The water should be focused in one area and shot around. Ryo opened his Sharingan. After Jiraiya demonstrated the technique just once, he was able to capture it. Over the next month, and relying on his Sharingan, Ryo learned about 87 of Jiraiya's water release jutsus. Jiraiya's repertoire of jutsus was huge, and Ryo has learned most of the water release ones with the exception of some S-rank jutsus developed by the second Hokage and some others that he had no interest in. The most important addition to Ryo's collection of water justice was Haku's secret art of water, the 1,000 stinging needles of death. Although water and ice techniques are different in essence, learning the Yuki clan's water release techniques should provide inspiration to him with ice release. Kid, I've almost taught you all I know about water release. You have been training here for almost a year now. I haven't worked on Senjutsu for far too long. So now, you need to rely on yourself to further evolve, and I'll be back to working on my Sage mode. It's been over half a year since he started training with Jiraiya. Over the course of that period, he acquired a much better level of physical fitness, gained a lot of chakra, and learned many water release jutsus. For all of that, Ryo was so grateful to Jiraiya for his guidance. During the following month, Ryo experimented with the effects of several water release jutsus, witnessing the correlation between the amount of pressure and the amount of devastation that a jutsu could bring. An obvious example was Tobirama's water-severing wave. When Ryo tried to freeze that jutsu while casting it, it turned to a sharp ice blade that could slice through rocks with ease. But after trying to freeze water release jutsus relying on charge, the huge relatively slow amounts of frozen water were brought down by gravity. So Ryo decided to give up on freezing such jutsus. Of course, he didn't learn how to take water shape transformation to the limit. And learning that is, for now, out of his reach. During these 6 months, Ryo also witnessed the growth of Gamahiro. His growth rate was really out of this world. In the manga, Naruto didn't see Gamakeki for a few months, and he grew to the size of Gamabuntat. Same could be said for Gamahiro, and Ryo witnessed this growth with his own eyes. From a size that's smaller than Gamakeshi's size when pain struck Konoha, to the enormous size of Gamabuntat in just half a year. Ryo can only wish him well. Chapter 38, 1 year later. Time went on, and Ryo spent a whole other year in Mount Myaboku. During this year, he focused on further mastering what he had learned before. Chidori and its derivates, the lightning chakra mode, Resenon, all kinds of water release jutsus, ice release, sage mode. After a year of refining his technique with all of that, Ryo was confident that he could, when in ice elementization or sage mode, face Kushina in her Kyuubi coat mode. Over the course of the past 2 years, Ryo improved as a ninja to a great extent, solving problems that haunted him for many years. He now can use ice without consuming too much chakra, and also managed to enter sage mode, and also learned quite a lot of jutsus. It's been 2 years, I think it's time to go back to Konoha. In that day, Ryo and Fukazaku were resting on the grass. Ryo-chan, you are leaving. Yeah, thank you for taking care of me over the course of the past 2 years, Fukazaku-sama. Indeed, Fukazaku helped Ryo a lot during those years, with clearing out natural energy, practicing sage mode, teaching him Kawazuku might, etc. Ryo was really grateful to him. Another one that Ryo felt grateful to was Jiraiya. If nothing else, helping him with altering the yin seal was key for him to be able to use his ice. That is not to mention the fact that he helped him enhance his physical shape, gain a lot of chakra, and learn so many water release jutsus. Jiraiya's sage mode made a great progress as well in that year. Ryo remembered the merging done in the manga to allow Jiraiya to maintain sage mode, so and the 2 great sage toads proposed that to Jiraiya. With help of those 2, Jiraiya was able to use sage mode with success. He was really happy with the progress he made, but he decided to return to Konoha right after that. Looking at his smile, Ryo understood exactly what he was thinking about. Ryo and the toads of Mount Myaboku bid each other farewell. Shima, who was out in Konoha looking for food, reverse summoned Ryo. Boss, a large bowl of seafood ramen, and 2 portions of pork roast. Ryo was reversed summoned somewhere close to Ichiraku Ramen's. "Oki, newcomer, please wait a moment." Boss Tookie was fast, and in no time, a bowl of steamed seafood ramen was placed in front of Ryo. "Hold on 1 second. Aren't you Ryo? It's been a long time, almost 2 years now." Tookie recognized Ryo and greeted him warmly. "Well, yet. I've been out of the village practicing for the past 2 years. Aha! Then today's ramen is my treat, welcoming you back to the village." "Thanks boss." Ryo chatted with Boss Tookie about how fun it was in Mount Mayaboku, while eating ramen. Suddenly, one of the Umbu appeared. "Yamanaka Ryo, the Hokage is calling for you." "Boss, it seems that I couldn't finish this bowl. I have to go." "Well, Sandaime-sama is calling you. You can finish this later." In the Hokage's office, the third smiled looking at Ryo who was staring back at him as well. Over the past 2 years, the 3RD's face has gathered quite a lot of wrinkles, with more of his hair turning white. After all, he was 50 years old. He was no longer in his prime. "Oh, Ryo-chan, without saying a word, you leave us and go to practice in Mount Mayaboku, leaving your job in the hospital behind you. Well, you haven't been paying me any salary to call it a job. Cough cough. What do kids need money for these days? Well, now you're back. Tomorrow, go to Konoha's hospital, this is now a mission that you'll be rewarded for." "Yes Hokage-sama. Now, if there's nothing else, would you please excuse me?" Ryo wanted to go home and see his mother, and later go see Kushina. "Oki, just remember to go to the hospital tomorrow." Just as he set foot outside of the 3RD's office, Ryo flew to his home. While he was on his way, his mother was resting in the inner room of their house. In the 2 years that he spent away from home, she missed him all the time. The one who's been taking care of her during those 2 years was Inoichi Yamanaka. "Mother, are you there?" Mother hearing her son's voice outside her room, Chintz rushed to the door to open it. Seeing her son, she burst into tears as she hugged him. Both mother and son sat down knee to knee and talked to each other till noon. Chintz cooked him all sorts of food. And although he had already eaten ramen at Ichiraku's, he ate up all she offered him to see her smile. In the afternoon, Ryo went out to find Kushina. After running through half of Konoha, he could find her. So he entered Sage mode to perceive her presence. Because of her huge chakra, Ryo easily found Kushina. Right with her, he perceived another familiar chakra. Running towards her, Ryo went into the forest of death, where he found her extremely irritated, hitting Jiraiya. "Kushina ne-san, what did Jiraiya-san do wrong?" "Ryo, you're back. Great. Join me in beating up this pervert." "Ryo, save me. It was an accident." Ryo understood what was going on. What happened is that Jiraiya peeped into a hot spring where she was preparing herself to bathe. Although he's as shameless as they come, he knew that peeping at his disciple's girlfriend wasn't acceptable by any stretch. So when he saw her, he decided to withdraw. Unfortunately, he didn't pay attention and caused some noise that grabbed her attention to him. When she saw him, she went into her four tails mode, chasing him all the way down into the forest of death. He knew he messed up when caught breaking the promise in such a way. Even though she was in her four tails mode, he didn't use his sage mode, simply deciding to not resist her. "Well, Ne-san, since he didn't see anything, let's forget it and let him go." "Yes, I was wrong. Hey, it's just for Ryo." Kushina was already tired from chasing him around, and she had so much to say to Ryo after not seeing him for so long. She decided to forgive him. The two went together to the third training ground. On their way, they talked about his progress in Mount Mayaboku during these 2 years. Kushina told him about what changed for her as well over the course of the past 2 years. Ryo didn't expect what she told him, that the Kyuubi and her had a great improvement in their relationship. Not so long after Ryo went to Mount Mayaboku, Minato also left the village on a mission. Being so bored, Kushina often talked to Kurama, and what she talked about was what Ryo said about Biju and humans being able to live together in peace. Soon after the two left, Kurama actually answered her. Hearing him respond for the first time, she spent all day trying to communicate with him and to push him to talk. Little by little, their relationship got better. "Ryo, you were right, people and Biju can really be friends, Q-san now is my friend." In the manga, Naruto also became friends with Kurama. Now it seems from what Kushin is saying that her relationship with him is so good that the whole Kyuubi incident seems avoidable. Chapter 39. Kyuubi. Ryo, don't you want to meet the Kyuubi? Ryo was shocked by Kushina's proposal, and he said subconsciously, this is not good Ne-san. What's the matter? It's taking you a long time to say you don't want to see it. Kushina rushed Ryo. Yeah, let me meet him. Ryo was still really interested in the Kyuubi. At just half strength, the great fox was able to beat 5 other Biju. I knew you wouldn't refuse. Ryo was embarrassed and scratched his head. Well then, now my mind will enter the Kyuubi seal, and yours will follow using your Yamanaka techniques. Ryo nodded, and his consciousness entered Kushina's body. Under Kushina's guidance, Ryo successfully entered the 9-tail seal. Kushina's seal was similar to that of Naruto from the inside. She took Ryo to the gate of the Kyuubi's cage. It was the same gate as in the manga, but the seal on it was gone. Kushina passed through one of the gaps in the cage and climbed onto one of the 9 tails. The Kyuubi actually turned a blind eye to her behavior. Hey, I came to see you again, Kyuubi. Kushina was being ignored by Kurama, so she started pulling on one of his other tails. Ne-san, be careful, get out of there. After seeing the Kyuubi, Ryo finally understood what the world was so afraid of. He might be as prideful as he was depicted in the manga, but the drawing fails to transmit his might. In his presence, Ryo was being smothered by the terrifying atmosphere that his immense power creates. When Kushina and Ryo came in to see the Kyuubi, he didn't even look at them. But just his breaths were enough to make Ryo tremble. Well, what's wrong, Ryo? Didn't you say the people and Biju could live together peacefully? Ryo looked at the careless Kushina jumping up and down on the Kyuubi's tails. How strong and fearless can one be? No wonder Naruto had such a character. Ryo sighed again, cursing genetics. Kushina, enough already. Now you don't just come to bother me, you bring a little brat along with you. Kurama was so annoyed by Kushina's behavior. With all his power, he was still helpless. He can't kill her, for if she dies, he dies. Scolding her is of no use, he's never seen such a shameless person. Not so long ago, she came in and removed the seals she had on him, saying that humans and Biju could live together in peace. Hey brat, you're the one telling Kushina about humans and Biju being able to coexist in peace. The human who said such words, is actually someone that Kurama was extremely interested in. No. Yes. It's me. The huge amounts of chakra coming from the Kyuubi's way made Ryo breathless. And how about now, after you've seen me, do you still think the same? Ryo was silent. Even though he read the manga and knew the final outcome, facing such a powerful entity, he lost all his confidence in saying that. I believe that will come. Even if I'm not the one to be friends with you, the next one after me will. The Kyuubi glanced back at Kushina and didn't answer her. After coming out of the seal, Ryo was all gloomy. He had a huge progress over the past 2 years. So he was disappointed that he didn't have the courage to face Kurama. And in this world, there are people even stronger than Kurama. Uchiha Madara, Hashirama Senju, the Rikudo Sennin, Kaguya. All of these characters were not just able to defeat the Kyuubi, they were able to control it. This was a huge wake-up call to Ryo. He knew that he had no time for self-content. He is far from being able to even talk to Kurama, so he has no business dealing with those god-tier characters. Ne-san, let's spare. Great. Kushina never saw Ryo be so serious. In the third training ground, a new round between the two began. Kushina went, as usual, to her tailed coat mode. And Ryo went straight into ice elementization. Water release, water bombs. Ryo launched a large amount of attacks in the direction of Kushina. In her tailed coat mode, she easily dodged those attacks. She was really familiar with Ryo's fighting style, lightning chakra mode with focus on Chidori, or ice teleportation then use of lightning to use lightning. Kushina was focused on waiting for Ryo's thunder attack, staying away from areas with a lot of water to avoid him teleporting on her. In the past 2 years, Ryo solved the problem of overusing chakra for ice. This time, he was planning on giving Kushina a surprise. Ryo used to need water to make ice. But in Mount Mayaboku, he learned how to use ice in the way of the Yuki clan after working on the 1,000 flying water needles of death. Most Yuki clan members actually used their Kekii Genkai to freeze the water content of air. After mastering water release with Jiraiya, Ryo was able to mimic that. "Eni-san, here I come." Right then, Ryo appeared directly in front of Kushina. Ryo didn't use Chidori, nor did he use Reikari or anything of that sort. Kushina was totally surprised and didn't know what to expect. Ice blade. The empty-handed Ryo suddenly had a blade in his hand. Kushina was caught off guard, and she couldn't avoid his attack. He landed it, scratching her coat. This was a success. Kushina wanted to respond right away by striking him. He was right in front of him, so she took a direct strike. Ice armor. Ryo gathered the moisture from the air, condensing it rapidly into what looked like an armor around his upper body. Ryo's body was unscathed. 1,000 flying water needles of death. Ryo condensed the moisture in the air into needles all around Kushina. Kushina was being harassed by the endless needles hitting her from every direction. While not strong, they had penetration power. And also, all the ice limited her movement. After thousands of needles hit her, Kushina's coat was all dented. Ryo took that chance to use his ice blade, and her state was finally broken. With his new techniques, Ryo finally beat Kushina in her tailed coat mode for the first time. Author's note: yesterday, a friend recommended me a comic book that gave me a lot of inspiration. From now on, ice release will be far more interesting, and not just for combat. Chapter 40. Ryo's Spring. The next day, Ryo took the mission given to him last night and went to work in Konoha's hospital. Over the past 2 years, there were no major changes to the hospital. This is year 42, and the relationships between villages were getting more and more intense. Even Konoha was under strain. So most of the village's money went to fund war supplies, with nothing to spare for repairing the hospital. Ryo entered the office of the chief of staff. Although the latter hasn't seen him in 2 years, he instantly recognized him. The memory of the little genius was still fresh in his mind. Ryo was put in the first aid department. There was where all the ninja coming back from the borders were delivered. Every now and then, so injured people were sent to the hospital. Ryo was still on point with his medical ninjutsu. After he saved Sakumo, the news was circulating around the village, that a 5-year-old had comparable medical skills to those of Tsunade. If the only criteria were skill with surgery and injury treatment, that statement wouldn't be too far from the truth. After all, Ryo has accumulated 5 years of surgical expertise in his past life, with extensive medical studies along with his innovative addition of ice transformation to the usual medical ninjutsu procedures. But in other respects, Ryo and Tsunade were heaps and bounds away from each other. The greatest difference maker was her antidote expertise. Naruto's world was different from Ryo's original world. Here there is the Sand Village, with the Sand Ninja being masters of using poison in warfare. Ryo's acceptance of working in here is partially due to his willingness to learn about their poisons. During the last World War, Ryo's mother Chintz was on the front lines detoxifying injured Konoha shinobi. Ryo was planning on learning about detoxification with his mom after learning about the poisons in the hospital. The Third Ninja World War was about to erupt. Ryo need to master all aspects of his medical ninjutsu before it starts. If possible, Ryo wants to learn even more to be fully prepared to all he might meet. For the next few days, Ryo didn't get any ninja coming from the borders of the sand. After asking one of his seniors, he understood that the poison was so terrible, most of those who do get poisoned never actually make it to the hospital. On his 6th day in Konoha's hospital, Ryo finally saw the first ninja to return from the border of the Sand Village. This one was treated on the spot by accompanying medics, so the toxins didn't spread and they managed to save his life. In his past life, when he was at college, Ryo knew little about poisons. He only knew that they were divided into categories. When considering their mode of action, they can be divided into neurotoxins and blood toxins. When dividing them by the obviousness of symptoms, they can be divided to explicit and hidden poisons. And if you judge them by the speed of action, they can be divided into acute and chronic toxins. Most of the poisons used by the puppeteers of the sand were acute explicit ones. If the poisoning is not treated within a certain period, the one poisoned will end up dying. Ryo and his superior worked together for hours before finally saving the wounded ninja's life. His blood contained blood toxins, so as blood flew through his body, toxins quickly spread to his body. Later, Ryo learned from chatting with his seniors that most of the sand poisons had similar effects. So Ryo determined that they were mainly blood toxins. When he learned that, Ryo was relieved. After all, freezing the body with his ice affinity will prevent it from flowing through the body, will give him time to remove the toxins. In the next few days, he learned even more about the healing jutsu. Actually, it can be altered to achieve a detoxification effect. After being busy for a long period of time, Konoha's hospital was suddenly idle and the atmosphere in the village became more and more imposing. Every day, ninja were rushing in and out of the village. And Ryo spent half a month practicing medical ninjutsu. Healing was able to handle most of poisons. After things settled down in the hospital, Ryo received no further tasks. Instead, he was transferred to an outpatient department for treatment of civilians and ninjas who were in the village. There weren't many patients coming to Ryo's department, so he had a lot of free time on his hands. So he spent his time reading through Tsunade's notes, hoping to find something interesting. One day, while Ryo was reading some of the notes, a little purple loli entered. Ryo can swear to gods in heaven that he was no lolicon. But he just happened to like this loli. Ryo's virgin heart that has been silent for 41 years sprouted. In the 32 years he spent in his previous life, he never cared about any girl. After spending 9 years here in the Naruto verse, he still didn't feel different about the beauties of this world. That lasted until this day. Ryo's violent heartbeat told him loud and clear that he has fallen in love with this purple-haired loli that he just met today for the first time. Hey, my wrist sprained while practicing taijutsu today. Ninja-san, can you help me treat it? The little Lolita stretched out her right hand. Her voice was soft, and Ryo felt like he was listening through it to her heart. Ryo put on the face of a kind older brother, comforting the little Lolita while softly whispering and healing her hand. Under the effects of healing, the sprain in her hand was gone. Thank you, Ninja-san. The little loli was very courteous and thanked Ryo politely. You don't have to be so formal. What's your name, little sis? My name is Yujao Uzuki. It turned out to be her. Ryo remembered her, and that while her appearance in the manga was not frequent, she was lacking on popularity. On one hand, because of her beauty, being one of the most beautiful shinobi in the story, and on the other hand, because of her name. Her name actually meant, moonflower. Evening flowers are symbols of eternal love. Most of the female characters in the original story had their spouses. Hinata was with Naruto, Sakura with Sasuke, Ino with Sai, Kurane with Asuma. Tsunade and Yujao were exceptions. Tsunade didn't have anyone to be with after Jiraiya sacrificed himself for Konoha in the village hidden by rain. And Yujao's boyfriend Hayate Gecko died young at the hands of Baki of the Sand. This is Ryo's first time liking a girl. But he was never a coward, he'd face everything in the world to get what he wants. Same went for the girl he likes. Yujao, that's a beautiful name. My name is Ryo Yamanaka, so you don't have to call me Ninja-san. Just call me Ryo Nisan. Ryo decided to build friendship with her as soon as possible. Then let me call you Ryo-san. My father taught me to be polite and not call strangers with their names straight. It was indeed her first time seeing Ryo. So he was a stranger, even though he's given her a very good first impression. Ryo chatted with Yujao, learning that she was 4 years old. Today was her first day practicing taijutsu and she accidentally wounded herself. Ryo remembered her fine swordsmanship in the manga and said, "Are you planning on practicing kenjutsu later on in the evening?" "Yes, how did you know?" "It doesn't matter. What really matters is that I can find someone to teach you." "Really? Who is it?" "Yes, really. Tomorrow come the hospital and then you'll find out who he is." Ryo hid who he was thinking about as he had someone in mind already. "Okay, Ryo-san, I'll see you tomorrow." See you tomorrow. Chapter 41, Kakashi's Progress. Ryo took a leave of absence from the hospital. The next day, he arrived at the gate and waited for the arrival of Yujao. They say that a woman in love has an IQ of 0. And looking at Ryo, things were not much better for men. Yesterday, he and Yujao agreed to meet up the next day, without determining a precise hour. Ryo waited for 2 hours at the hospital's entrance before Yujao turned up running breathlessly with a short sword in her hand. Seeing her, Ryo blinked to where she was. "Ryo! Ryo-san! Have you been waiting for too long?" The little Lolita obviously ran all the way here. Then stopped and tried to take a breath. "No, I just came out of the hospital." Ryo responded. "Yujao, let's go to the 3 training ground. There, we'll find the teacher who will train you." Great! When the subject is Kenjutsu, Yujao's eyes shine brightly. In the 3 training ground, Kakashi, who was invited by Ryo, was chopping a bunch of wooden pegs while murmuring. If you get close enough to him, you would hear him say, "Ryo Yaro, you've picked up the habit of being late from Obito." When Ryo arrived, he ignored Kakashi's angry eyes and introduced him to Yujao. "Yujao, this is Kakashi Hatake, my friend and the next sword master of the Hatake clan. Let him teach you." "What? Ryo, you call me this early in the morning to teach a little girl Kenjutsu?" Kakashi actually thought that Ryo was about to show him something important, so he arrived here in the early morning. The result was that he had to wait for him for 2 hours. Now that he learned that Ryo called him just to teach a little girl Kenjutsu, he was furious. The little loli was excited when she knew about Kakashi's heritage as a Hatake. But then she heard him refuse teaching her, her little face turned pale. A child cannot hide his emotions. When Ryo saw Yujao's face, he decided to make Kakashi change his mind. "Kakashi, I'm giving you another chance. Not teaching. Not teaching." Right as he heard his answer, Ryo's lightning chakram mode broke out, and he immediately appeared behind Kakashi. While Ryo has been practicing for the past 2 years, the genius Kakashi was also developing his skills. Ryo has achieved success with the lightning chakram mode by following Sakumo's teachings. But being trained by Konoha's White Fang was not something exclusive to him. The Hatake's Kenjutsu was based on Taijutsu, same as their lighting chakram mode. So Kakashi learned that mode to enhance his reflexes and speed. He never imagined that Kakashi would outspeed him and split in a ash. Now that he's exposed, Kakashi wouldn't let this opportunity go waste. He drew his dagger, and chakra went through it looking like he was using Chidori blade. "Well done Kakashi, you now can use Chidori blade. I don't have your Sharingan. My eyes can't keep up with the Chidori yet. It seems like you can only think about that just to. This is no longer a simple Chidori blade." "What do you mean?" Kakashi's words made Ryo notice that the current owing through this blade felt indeed different from a Chidori. Kakashi didn't explain much. His short knife emitting white and blue lightning went directly towards Ryo, who was actually curious about his friend's progress. He did not dodge the attack and faced him head-on. Yujao was watching the two using only taijutsu and their blades. It was a powerful scene to behold. She has already heard about Kakashi the genius who graduated at 5 years of age. However, she didn't think the kind doctor from yesterday would be so strong. "Kakashi, you've really improved a lot over the course of the past 2 years. After summoning, Ryo found that without using senjutsu or ice, he wasn't able to beat him for a good while. Ryo had in mind that Kakashi became a jonin at age 11. At the Konoha Bridge incident, he had been a jonin for some time. Now at age 8, he was able to face Ryo in his normal state. Ryo didn't understand if Kakashi was at that level in the original story, or if this is because now he gets to be taught for more time by Sakumo. Knowing that Ryo can even face a jonin in his normal state now, Kakashi is at least at Takubutsu jonin level. Yet, Kakashi wasn't attacking anymore. He knew that his progress over the past 2 years was great, but he didn't expect that even Ryo wouldn't beat him without using ice. "Hey, Kakashi, teach that little girl. Please." "Why?" Kakashi noticed that there was something wrong with Ryo. "Kaka, I think I like this little girl." "What?" Kakashi's eyes that were usually pale revealed deep contempt. That girl looked like she was 3 or 4 years old. "Hey, what with that look? I swear I'm not a lolicon. She just happened to be a loli." Ryo's explanation was denitely lacking. "Ryo-san, is Kakashi-san unwilling to teach me?" Yujao asked cautiously. "Of course not. He just didn't know where to start." "Didn't you just tell me that Kakashi?" Kakashi felt a cold shudder down his spine. Just now, he couldn't even beat Ryo in his normal state. What if he uses ice? Yes. Forced by Ryo's pressure, Kakashi nodded. Hearing Kakashi's consent, Yujao's small face had a bright smile. Afterwards, Ryo took a long vacation from the hospital, and started going with Kakashi and Yujao to the 3 training ground. This was year 42, and the village was full of movement. Even though there was no direct attack from other villages, there were continuous small frictions. The Hokage issued a command, and the village's shinobi started preparing for war. Today, the heads of the Inoshikacho clans held a conference. All the clan's members were there, including Ryo. And also, Jiraiya was there. This was Ryo's one conference. He has always thought that the clans were small, so he didn't expect 500 people to be there. At the meeting, Inoichi Yamanaka was silent, and Choza Akimishi had a bag of chips. Anki Shikaku Nara was explaining the details about the war to people present. Most of them were ignorant for so long about this and were now listening quietly. After the clan meeting ended, the ninjas from all three clans left as fast as possible to prepare for war. Ryo also returned to the 3 training ground. There, Ryo was working on a new type of medical ninjutsu. The 3 World War was about to begin, so he must finish this as soon as possible. Chapter 42, Healing Tag. What Ryo was working on was a medical tag, with the same principle as the explosive tags. While reading through Tsunade's notes, he stumbled across the idea. If such a convenient to carry medical jutsu was around, Konoha's shinobis should have a much higher survival rate. If it wasn't for the subsequent deaths of Nawaki and Dan, Tsunade would have probably completed making this tag. In his past life, Ryo saw all types of tags in several stories. One of the most intriguing was the explosive tag he found in Naruto. The explosive tag's principle is sealing a high-grade fire jutsu on a special sealing paper in the form of kanji. When released, it's as powerful in impact as a real-life fire jutsu. Kid, you're still working on your Fuin jutsu. While Ryo couldn't see any light, Jiraiya appeared. He had just left the Hokage's office. Recently, there were frequent actions by the Sand Ninja that really annoyed the third. So he planned on sending someone to inquire. When it came to inquiring intelligence, Jiraiya was the one trusted the most by the 3. He was the obvious choice for the mission. He was intending on leaving the village immediately. While going through the 3 training ground, he heard Ryo. He scratched his head for a while and then came in to check out what he was up to. Ah, hey Jiraiya-san. I wasn't practicing Fuin jutsu, I was working on developing a new technique. It looks like you're making a healing tag. Jiraiya-san, how did you know? If you're trying to do that, you still have time to give up, kid. People have been trying to pull this off for a really long time. How would you do it easily? Jiraiya patted on Ryo's shoulder as he said that. Hearing Jiraiya, Ryo was surprised that the tag was studied for so long without success. Jiraiya-san, why did they all fail? Now that he knew of older studies of the idea, Ryo wanted to know exactly where they failed and maybe found a clue to pull it off himself. Jiraiya took a second to think, then said, yet. I remembered Tsunade said that medical jutsus couldn't be stored for a long time. What were their techniques used to seal it? That I don't know. You're better off asking Tsunade or Orochimaru. This kind of jutsu was never my thing. Kid, don't waste your time with this. Another war is on the way. Work more on getting stronger. After saying that, Jiraiya went away. Ryo was never the type to concede defeat so easily. He understood that the failure of those who tried before him doesn't mean that he will. Edison failed to invent light bulbs more than 8,000 times and experimented with more than 7,600 kinds of materials. Ryo still failed several times. In the following month, he experimented with various materials that could conduct chakra instead of paper and couldn't find anyone suitable for sealing medical jutsus. Kid, you haven't given up yet. When he returned from his mission, Jiraiya found out that Ryo was still working on the medical tag. Jiraiya-san, you're back. Ryo was tired as Jiraiya saluted him back. Kid, I asked Orochimaru about the material they used to seal medical ninjutsu before coming here. He said that they used jade stones. As he finished his words, Jiraiya threw a jade stone to Ryo. Jade. This came as a great surprise to Ryo. He never expected this. All the years he spent as a bookworm reading through novels didn't give him a clue. Ryo took the piece of jade that Jiraiya threw him. The evil sealing method worked with jade as if it was flesh. And he was able to seal healing in the stone. Soon after, Ryo couldn't feel the healing chakra within the stone. Just like Jiraiya mentioned to him before, it was gradually dissipating from within it. Medical ninjutsu is different from other types of ninjutsu. Jiraiya-san, do you think that using natural energy could prevent this dissipation? Ryo was thinking of how Sage Mode made Hashirama's wood release wilder and also how it accelerated his recovery. Since all healing jutsus were based on his recovery, should using natural energy make medical ninjutsu more stable? Well, I'm not sure. You can try it out, kid. Ryo entered Sage mode, and used healing and then sealed it within the Jade Stone. This time, Ryo actually could feel the medical chakra being maintained within stone, and he didn't feel its levels drop at all. This technique was of great importance to Konoha, and something that the three should definitely know about. The success of such a technique means that Ryo doesn't have to worry that a Konoha ninja would be injured alone. However, this technique relies on the use of natural energy, and the only two using Sage mode in Konoha are Ryo and Jiraiya. Now, Ryo intends on returning to the Yamanaka household, to explain the healing stone to Inoichi Yamanaka. Chapter 43 Concurrent Graduation. In the Yamanaka household, Ryo and Inoichi discussed the healing stone. Inoichi, being the head of his family, he should be dumb to not realize the great benefit that this idea could bring. Among the three clans of the Inoshikacho alliance, the Naras are in charge of maintaining the normal operation of Konoha's pharmaceutical system. This means that they are mainly in charge of providing medical herbs inside Konoha. The income that they get from that is enormous. In the manga, that's why they use their pills as they like. The Akimika's secret pills are the origin of soldier food pills. Therefore, all soldier food pill sales contribute to the Akimika's income. Only the Yamanakas have no specialty business and no share in income of any supplies. Most of the clan's expenses are covered by the rewards that its members get for mission. This stone that Ryo came up with made Inoichi see a bright opportunity for the tribe to improve their living conditions. He approved Ryo's idea and encouraged him to carry on. A few days later, Ryo and Inoichi were summoned by the third. In his office, the Hokage and Jiraiya were waiting for the two to arrive. The latter delivered a report to the third the previous day mentioning Ryo's experiments with the healing stones. The Hokage understood well the value of such a stone to the village. This will actually give Konoha a huge edge in the upcoming war, and increase its ninjas' survival rates greatly. The two Yamanakas, Ryo and Inoichi, arrived at the office. The third went straight to the point and asked, Ryo, could these stones be mass-produced? Ryo shook his head. Even though he didn't even give himself time to sleep, he couldn't make many stones. So the third asked him. Then, how many can we make per day? A maximum of 30 a day. Ryo answered him after giving it some thought. The third nodded and Jiraiya said that his own estimate was not so different. Judging from Jiraiya's report, the Sand has internal problems currently and they shouldn't be able to go to war anytime soon. With the pace of 30 stones a day, there will be plenty of reserves for Konoha before the war starts. This made the third very satisfied. Inoichi, I think you also understand that this kind of stone should have a great significance to the village and to the Yamanakas. As the head of your clan, tell us how you think things should go. Hokage-sama, the village is responsible of helping our clan in buying jade. And out of each sale of a healing stone, 30% of the revenue should go to the village. Selling the stones should be under the Yamanaka's control, Inoichi knew that well. After that, the two went on for quite some bargaining. Finally, they settled on making the village buy the jade, and on giving it 40% of the income in return. The two sides were very satisfied with this result, and Ryo's mission in the hospital was put to a halt. Making the stones was his new mission, one that's considered B rank. A bit more than a month later, Ryo was making the stones in the third training ground when Yujao entered through the door under Kakashi's guidance. Yujao's performance in Kenjutsu wasn't comparable to that of the super-talented Kakashi, but it was still great compared to most people. However, Kakashi discovered a lot of her basic flaws after spending over a month teaching her. Sakumo pointed out before that his son never puts his heart into anything unless he sees how serious the problem is. Now, Kakashi was no longer so repellent to teaching Yujao. Ryo asked him, Kakashi, do you want to go to the academy today? The academy? Why? Kakashi asked Ryo. Rin and Obito are graduating today, didn't you know? Kakashi shook his head. Actually, even Ryo didn't know about the graduation. But just a moment ago, while he was making a stone, Ryo perceived it with his sage mode. Wanna go see them? Kakashi asked. Okay. Ryo hasn't seen Obito and Rin for quite a long time. Yujao, we're going to the academy to see our classmates' graduation exams. Do you want to go? No, I can't, Ryo-ni-san, I want to practice harder. After some hard work, Yujao was finally calling Ryo-ni-san instead of Ryo-san. This made him really happy. So he and Kakashi went to the Ninja Academy and were there just in time to catch up with Kurane taking the exam. Passing it was no problem for the girl from the prestigious Ui clan. After that, it was Asuma's role, whose exam went smoothly, as its subject was fire release. Next, Might Guy. Whenever Guy was tested before, students laughed. His ninjutsu skills were bad, and he couldn't perform genjutsu. He was only good with taijutsu. The school's graduation assessment is generally based on testing students with all three techniques. But now that there's a war that's about to break out, Konoha needed more ninjas, more cannon fodder to enter the battlefield. Guy was able to impress the third, and the director put him in the elite class because of that. Unlike other kids, children in the elite classes were the one that are expected to be the pillars of the future of Konoha. These kids usually end up with elite jonins as instructors. The drums of war were knocking. So the teacher was free to determine the subject for each student. For Guy, it was taijutsu, so he excelled with ease. Translator note: didn't the 6-year-old Kakashi beat Guy in the Chunin exam? Now Kakashi is 8, so shouldn't Guy be a genin already? Well, maybe this is all the butterfly effect or something. Next, Obito Uchiha. Obito Uchiha. Are you there? The examiner's deliberate repetition made the students laugh out loud. Because he was an Uchiha, he was put in the elite class. But his performance was only slightly better than Guy's, and he had this problem with punctuality. He was turning little by little into Konoha's king of late. The subject of Obito's exam was cloning jutsu. The Uchiha clan teaches this technique to their children at a very young age. So Obito had no problem with it. Later on, it was Rin's turn. Like Sakura, she had great chakra control. After the last student's exam was completed, all of the members of the elite class had easy success. Afterwards, their teacher gave them a lengthy speech, after which he offered them their forehead protectors. With that, Obito and the others officially became ninja. Rin, Obito, this way. Kakashi Yaro, Ryo Kyuzo, I graduated too. Obito's was being the usual Obito as he was yelling to the two. Kakashi, Ryo, what brought you here? Rin asked. We were bored and we came to see your exam. Ryo answered her. While the four were chatting, other student noticed the two familiar faces. Are those Kakashi and Ryo? Both of them have been established as examples for the students. Kakashi was the youngest graduate in the history of the academy, and the youngest Chunin ever. Ryo was a great medic with skills comparable to those of Tsunade. Kakashi, Obito, Rin, this sounds like trouble. I didn't come to deal with all of these students, I just came by to see you and invite you on a barbecue to celebrate your graduation. See you guys in the barbecue shop next to the third training ground. As Ryo finished his words, he activated his lightning chakra mode and instantly left. Kakashi also did the same thing, and left them there. Obito and Rin looked at each other and rushed out of the crowd towards the barbecue shop. Chapter 44, Orochimaru. The Yamanaka clan has recently made a lot of money from the sale of the healing stones, and the pockets of the developer and producer, Ryo, were also getting filled. When Obito and Rin arrived, the four of them enjoyed a good meal in the barbecue shop. The charm of barbecued meat was strong enough to even keep Obito off of quarreling with Kakashi. After the barbecue, the four walked around the streets of Konoha talking about the recent situation. Obito, who is the one to be our instructor now? That, I don't know. Being an Uchiha, Obito usually is well informed about whatever happens in the village. Rin tried to ask him this question but she didn't expect him to have no answer. Hi, you already know that you are together in a group. Ryo didn't hear their teacher dividing them into groups yet. So he asked them about it. Before the exam, Obito told me that everyone will pass. And he also said that we will be in a team together. It seems that the war is coming soon. The fixed results should only mean that they are needed in the upcoming war. Ryo remembered how the Third World War originally erupted. It was because the third Kazigake went missing. Back when Jiraiya went to the sand to collect information, there were so many internal problems there, and it's safe to assume from his description that it's because Sasori went rogue. Actually, it was after that fact that Sasori assassinated the third Kazekage who came to pursue him. The sand used this as an excuse to wage war. The world war seems to be really close. Kakashi, Obito, Rin. The war is about to begin. Everyone will be sent to the battlefield. These are healing stones that I made, 30 of them, 10 for each of you. Their effect is similar to that of the healing palm. Ryo distributed the stone to his friends. Kakashi already knew what it was, so he took them. Obito and Rin saw him do it and did not refuse. There's only so much that I can do. Be careful on the battlefield. Especially Obito, I'm relying on you. You're a hero. He knew that Obito was taken in by Madara in the Konoha Bridge battle, and that Rin was accidentally killed by Kakashi a year before Minato became the fourth Hokage. But that was in the manga. Now this is his real world. He can never guarantee that their experience in the manga would not be repeated. Now he just can try everything possible that he can do in hope that all three of them survive. After bidding farewell with the three, Ryo went back to the third training ground, where Yujao was still waving her sword. This was no easy feat for a 4-year-old girl. Yujao, stop, I have something to say to you. Hearing Ryo's voice, Yujao stopped her practice. He never interrupted her training, this must be something important. What's the matter, Ryo-ni-san? Yujao, starting tomorrow, I want you to stop coming to the third training ground. Why? There is a war that's about to take place. Ryo-oni-san needs to make some preparations. Yujao nodded her head. Although she had never experienced the war, she was already terrified because of the words of her parents and her surroundings. Ryo-ni-san, after the war ends, I want you to come teach me. Her bright smile brought warmth to Ryo's heart. After seeing her leave, Ryo began going all out on making healing stones. The third knows that he can make 30 per day, but he actually can go beyond that. A month later, Ryo made 1,100 stones. He gave 900 to his clan to sell, and still had over 200 in hand. Now that he has that, he became relaxed. He doesn't have to make any more stones. Over the past 3 months, he made over 2,700 of them. 2,500 are enough for the village to go through this war. Now, he needs to work on his wind release. The first enemies that Konoha is going to face in the upcoming war are the Sand Ninja, who have many wind release users. Ryo was not worried about the puppeteers of the sand. I can cope with their speed and physical attacks and with their poisons as well. But he didn't know much about wind release. He wants now to learn as much as possible about it. Minato was an expert in wind release, but unfortunately he has just become the tutor for the Kakashi 3. He shouldn't be available. Jiraiya was sent back by the third to the sand village to get more information. With both of them away from here, Ryo decided to go to Konoha's library in order to find the info he wants. Suddenly, right before leaving the third training ground, Ryo felt a strong unfamiliar aura behind his back. It was closing in on him. Ryo quietly entered the ice elementization mode and opened up his yin seal. Ryo walked away from where the aura was coming, but it closed in on his really fast. Ryo directly went into his lightning ice chakra mode, and as the one behind him attacked, he avoided it. Ryo looked at the attacker, long black hair, golden snake-like eyes, purple eyeshadows, pale skin, it was Orochimaru. Orochimaru-san. Head of the technology core in the village. Ryo used to be a fan of Orochimaru. This is the ninja who believes the most in science, cell culture, human experiments, reincarnation, and cloning. Ryo-kun, meeting you for the first time, I couldn't keep myself from testing your skills. Please don't be offended by this. Orochimaru's voice was hoarse and emotionless. But Ryo heard kindness within it. They are both believers in science, so he was biased towards him. You are Orochimaru-san. Yes, that's me. Ryo was actually relieved when he knew that the attacker was Orochimaru. At this point in time, he still had feelings for Konoha, and was still respectful to his sensei Sarutobi. Ryo wasn't worried at all. Ryo-kun, I heard that you successfully developed the healing stones. When Orochimaru returned to Konoha from his mission the Land of Earth, he heard from the third about Ryo's success. This wasn't the first time he heard about his name. He heard before of this little kid comparable to Tsunade. At first, he thought that this was just a pawn put there to stabilize the medical system after Tsunade left. When he found out he saved Sakumo from taking his own life after all doctors considered him dead, he was impressed by this feat, but he thought that he is being extremely overhyped. Nobody in his eyes would get close to Tsunade's skill, and nobody knew Tsunade's skill better than him. Ryo's success with the healing stones was what finally got him interested. When he wanted to meet him, he heard that he was always training in the third training grounds. So he went there to find him, and he didn't expect to bump into him on his way out. Yes, Orochimaru-san. I've developed them indeed. Orochimaru looked at the kid who was interested in talking to him, and had to admit his excellence from the way he dodged him. Chapter 45, and Orochimaru mentions immortality. Ryo-kun, where are you going? Weren't you ordered by Sarutobi-sensei to make these healing stones? I've been making them of the past 3 months, the village should have reserves. Ryo answered Orochimaru. There isn't such a thing as too much of this kind of stone. Ryo-kun, you haven't answered me, where are you going? Orochimaru-san, I was going to Konoha's library to read about wind release jutsus. Wind release? Orochimaru stared thoughtfully at Ryo. Yes. We are about to go to war. I want to learn as much as possible before it starts. What does Konoha's library have to do with leaning ninjutsu? Ryo explained, Minato-Nisan has a team of new genins to train, and Jiraiya-san has missions he has to accomplish. I only have the library to go to. Wind release? I master that. Should I demonstrate the jutsus to you? Orochimaru, who was really interested in Ryo, found his chance. Sorry for making you go through the trouble, Orochimaru-san. Ryo nodded after staying silent for a while. As one of the legendary Sunin, Orochimaru's strength was amazing. And at this time, he didn't use living corpse reincarnation, so his soul was not defected and less susceptible to genjutsu. On the third training ground, he demonstrated a variety of wind release jutsus in front of Ryo, ranging from C class all the way up to A class. What was special was not just the flawless demonstration, but also the fact that he explained the characteristics and disadvantages of wind release with great detail. Ryo had to admit that when it came to knowledge of ninjutsu, he exceeded even Jiraiya. After he finished with the demonstration, Orochimaru sat down to have a chat with Ryo. Ryo-kun, you are also a medical ninja. What is life to you? This question reminded Ryo of the manga. As a result of his parents' death, Orochimaru began his quest to finding the meaning behind life. The more he explored, the more he found how fragile and short it was. He was a ninjutsu genius, so his contempt for life's fragility and shortness made him try to find the ninjutsu for immortality. Through the years of research, he became more and more indifferent to other people's life and death, and has increasingly resorted to unscrupulous methods. He ended up using ninjas and even children from his own village, Konoha, as test subject. The first time Ryo saw him in the anime, he perceived him as the most evil of all. The reason was very simple: no one who's good would kill their own loving teacher. However, Orochimaru's image began changing little by little. The way he survived and clung to life just like a snake, along with the character development over the course of the story, made Ryo feel that he was a really interesting person. After that, his return to save Tsunade during the war made was badass. In his past world, Ryo was raised under the red flag of capitalism, accepting a materialistic look at life during his education, and he was also a medical worker. This all made him really intrigued by this character that seemed to have no god but science. Every time he tried to evaluate the characters of the story, it went on like this: some believed in willpower, others believed in the bloodline, others believed in ocular power, and others believed in taijutsu, many believed in hard work. But Orochimaru, and only Orochimaru, believed in science. Orochimaru-san, I feel life's too vulnerable, especially that of a ninja. Poison can kill a ninja, another ninja can kill him, even a piece of paper like an explosive tag can do it. Hearing Ryo's words made Orochimaru's eyes shine slightly. This was the first kid he ever heard with ideas so close to his. Although life is short and fragile, some things it brings are priceless and eternal. Ninjutsu inherited over generation, inheritance of blood-limited skills, and the love of parents to their children. The Ryo's words silenced Orochimaru. These few words weren't changing his beliefs, but they did remind him of his parents. Ryo-kun, you think people can find a way to get eternal life? Obviously, Ryo's answer is what made Orochimaru ask such a question. In his last life, he heard many fans of Naruto say that if one was fortunate enough to live in Konoha, he should go and learn Orochimaru's secret. Their dream now is not that far from Ryo's reach. In this world, the only character that truly reached immortality was Kaguya, who ate the chakra fruit of the god tree. Her eternal life was close to a magical thing that's far out of reach. Orochimaru's technique, on the other hand, was based on sacrificing a life for the sake of a few more years. Before now, Ryo had little interest in eternal life. In his view, a few decades are enough to get what the world has to give. Now that he fell in love, his views changed a bit. It would be wonderful to live with the one you love forever. Orochimaru-san, I think that it's possible in a certain sense. After careful consideration, Ryo still had this answer to give. The reason why people die of old age is because they accumulate mistakes in the process of meiosis. Their cells are not perfectly reproduced and over time, they accumulate in his body, creating a sort of a bug that crashes his whole system. Their bodies can no longer function as they should, and they die. Author's note, this was taken from the lecture of a professor in college. If one takes the genes of a human in the peak of his life, and then replicate them to form a new human body. And then, if the human consciousness is transferred there, a new life shall begin. In his past life, such a thing was impossible. No one knew how to transfer a soul. But this has happened in Naruto's world with success. Reaper's death seal, Edo Tensei and living corpse reincarnation are all obvious examples of manipulating souls in this world. The method that Ryo is thinking about is close to Orochimaru's living corpse reincarnation, but it actually manages to avoid damaging the soul of the user or of anyone. He has no plans of telling Orochimaru about it. And of course, he will not be using it himself. On one hand, the current tech in this world does not meet his vision. And on another, this world has the magical power of chakra. Using the knowledge he has from his past world to achieve eternal life doesn't fit the image that Ryo desires. Even if he feels the urge to live forever one day, he'll try to make it happen in Kagaya's way. Now he has little interest in things such as eternal life. Ryo's goal remains being the strongest in the world. Orochimaru was very satisfied with Ryo's answer. He chatted more with him and made him feel like he had found a friend. While they were absorbed in their in-depth discussions, an Umbu came in with an order from the third. He was summoning Orochimaru to his office. Ryo-kun, I hope we can have the opportunity to chat some more next time. After they said goodbye to each other, they both left the place. Chapter 46, The Warhorn. Shortly after Orochimaru left the place, the third training ground was bustling again. Minato took Kakashi and the others there, and soon after, Kushina arrived. Minato, why did Jiraiya invite us here? Now he's late, I was happily shopping. Kushina's face looked really dissatisfied. Don't get mad, Kushina. It's definitely something important that he invited us for. He told me to invite you and never said anything more than that. Let's be patient. Minato was trying to calm Kushina down, but he also was wondering about the reason that made his sensei invite all of them. Ryo-yaro, how come you don't have a team? Or not even a teacher? Obito felt it was strange. I do have a teacher. That redhead beauty next to Minato-Nisan is my teacher. Ryo explained with pride. Minato-Nisan. You actually call him Nisan? Ryo's words stunned Obito. My teacher, Kushina-Nisan, is your sensei's girlfriend, so he's like my older brother. Okay, that's it. Enough with you beating me to things like this. I wanna fight you right now. Obito, back down, or you might get yourself killed. Kakashi, who was on the side, took a shot at Obito. With no regards to his friend's words, Obito launched his clan's signature jutsu Katon, fireball towards Ryo. Ryo shook his head with pity, slid through the fireball with Chidori, and then used his lightning chakra mode to instantly appear behind Obito. It seems like the game is over, Obito. Hearing Ryo's voice behind his ear, Obito was drenched in sweat. Ryo-yaro. One day I'll definitely beat you. You can make Obito lose the battle, but his mouth will never be beaten into silence. Ryo, how did you do it? That was just like Minato-sensei's technique. Is it a space-time ninja? That's how you disappeared at the academy. Rin was also shocked by Ryo's sudden appearance. She remembered immediately what he did at the academy. It looked a lot like teleportation. This is close to an instant jutsu. By stimulating cell activity with lightning chakra, one can take his reflexes and movement to an extreme of speed. Minato's Nisan's technique is totally different. Kakashi used it on that day as well. Then why were we still able to see Kakashi when he used it? Obito asked about what Rin wanted to know. If Kakashi used the same technique on that day, how come did they manage to see his silhouette? Oh, that's because his technique is not on point, said Ryo with a broad smile. Kakashi didn't know how to respond to Ryo's words. He just gave them a cold yawn and glanced at Ryo with his pale eyes. Ryo, come on, Jiraiya-sensei is here. Minato rushed to Ryo shouting. So Minato, these two kids are also your students? Jiraiya noticed Obito and Rin. Yes, I'm their teacher. That's Obito Uchiha, and she's Rin Nohara. Guys, say hello to my sensei. Jiraiya-san, facing one of the legendary Sunin, Obito did not even dare to say hi. During World War II, the Sunin became really famous. All the clans in Konoha, including the Uchihas, respected them. Just like the third, Jiraiya treated all clans equally. He wasn't hostile towards the Uchihas. Whenever he met one, there was mutual respect between them. So, not so long ago, I was sent by Sarutobi-sensei to the Sand Village to inquire intelligence. In fact, 3 months before that expedition, I had already infiltrated their village. I found out they had internal problems. What was the cause to that? And sensei, do you mean that the Sand Village stopped their movement around Konoha because of these problems? Yes indeed. At that time, the best of their puppet masters disappeared. Sasori of the Red Sand was not only a genius puppet master, he was also the grandson of the masterful poison expert Cho. He had a great reputation in the village and his disappearance was a great blow to their power. The Sand Ninja stopped all their missions to try to eliminate the impact of the incident. As Jiraiya finished his words, he stopped and watched Minato. On top of being an amazing fighter, his disciple was also great at analyzing information. He took a second to think through it and said, Jiraiya-sensei, did something happen to another one important in the Sand Village? Minato didn't disappoint his sensei who went on and said, Minato is right, the last time I snuck in there, and the atmosphere there was unordinary. The ninja there were all pumped up and swearing that they'll have their vengeance from Konoha. I used my ways and found out from one of them that the third Hokage tracked down Sasori to the borders of the Fire Country. And there, he disappeared. What? The third Hokage disappeared on our borders. Kushina couldn't keep herself from yelling. Such a disappearance is no trivial matter. The relationship between Suna and Konoha was already shaky. The consequences of such an event are understandable easily even by Kushina. Then it's no wonder that they mobilized so many of the troops to be on the borders. I guess they are waiting until a fourth Hokage is elected to then wage a full-out war, said Minato. Oh yeah, the war is coming. Jiraiya sighed as he said that. The disappearance of the third Hokage was what blew the war horn in the original timeline. Ryo has already guessed that this was going to be the topic when all of them were invited here together. Ni-san, Jiraiya-san. Here are 50 healing stones that I've made myself. This way you can save some money. He handed them 50 stones and went on to say, Ni-san, these are 50 stones, use them whenever you need them. Whenever you are out of stones, reach out for me. The two who just received the stones were still moved by the act. These stones are such a precious gift. The village would distribute some stones, but they should be getting 5 stones each. Healing saves lives, one can never have too many healing tools. Getting 50 from Ryo made them both really grateful. But what they didn't expect was that Ryo would give Kushina 50 stone to herself, and tell her to come for more if she's ever out of stock. Minato was okay with it. After all, Kushina is his girlfriend, giving the stones to her is like giving them to him. Jiraiya however was not okay with this. Hey kid! Kushina won't even be going to the battlefield. Why does she need so many stones? You give the sage who puts his life on the line for the village only 25? I actually helped with making those stones, you know. Ryo ignored his arguing as his main concern was going back to his clan to check out on them. Chapter 47, The Three Clans Direction. At the Yamanakas, the clan's leader Inoichi summoned all 3 clans of their alliance. The Akamiki and Nara clan members have arrived to the courtyard. Ryo, you're back. Come on in, the meeting will start now. Inoichi was just about to send someone to find Ryo. Ryo saluted his clan members and entered. At the meeting, Shikaku Nara was the main spokesperson. He gave a brief and concise speech about the arrangement of the 3 clans and their position in the village. Then it was time for the distribution of war supplies. The 3 clans as always shared everything equally. No matter what was prepared, it was always for all 3 clans. The Akamikas supplied everyone with food pills and the Nara clan distributed medicines and bandages. Even the non-ninja clan members were doing auxiliary work in the reed and prepared to bear the burden with the fighters. After the food, pills and medical supplies were distributed, most of the members of the three clans were ready to disband and go back home to bid farewell to their families. Everybody please wait. The war supplies provided by the Yamanaka clan are yet to be distributed. Shikaku's voice left everyone quiet. The Nara and the Akamika ninja were looking at their companions from the Yamanaka clan. The Yamanakas actually did not know about the stones. They all were wondering about these supplies with stunned faces as well. The Yamanakas will be giving healing stones to everyone. These are jade stones in which the healing jutsu was sealed. It's essentially a portable medical ninjutsu. As soon as Shikaku finished his words, everybody started whispering. They've never heard of such a thing. Being offered a portable medical jutsu is like getting a second life on the battlefield. Some of these ninja knew about the concept of a healing tag. What they did not expect was that the Yamanakas would actually buy an item so expensive in high quantities. In particular, the Yamanaka ninja knew well about the economic conditions within the clan and they were stunned. Inoichi-sama, did our family get some more reserves lately? How did we get enough money to buy these healing stones? Eventually, one of the Yamanaka elders just had to ask this question. These stones have been made in our clan. Inoichi wasn't the talkative type, and that dry sentence was all he said in response. This made the crowd boil even more. Such an important item was actually made by a Yamanaka. The thing is that this healing stone was kept as a strategic secret in Konoha. Only the heads of the bigger clans and of the Inoshikacho clans knew about it. It was a S-level secret. When the situation started becoming this tense between the villages, Konoha started distributing the stones to the heads of clans. The Nara and Akamishi ninja in the meeting congratulated their Yamanaka companions. There are no questions asked between the members of the clans as they all considered each other family. Looking at their eyes, Ryo was really impressed. He wasn't used to see such a brotherly feeling in his past life, so this got him particularly moved. There shouldn't be many reserves for the Yamanakas and the two other clans. Ryo handed over a total of 2,500 stones to Inoichi. The village can give up to 5 stones to each ninja and the clan had only 500 left. 500 stones for 500 ninja, even if they excluded the genins, there shouldn't be many for each ninja that gets stones. This annoyed Ryo so much. In the beginning, he should have worked harder to make more. The 3 clans had 11 jonins and special jonins. Each of those had 5 stones. The 200 genins in the clans were given 2 stones each and the genins had none. This stone was not developed until recently. We don't have much to give for genins and genins. I hope you'd be patient. You can apply for a stone now through Shikaku and you'll get one whenever they're ready, said Inoichi. The present ninja had no complaints. Everyone knew that resources should go to the ones who need them the most. After the clan meeting, Ryo was invited by Inoichi. Together, they went to meet Shikaku Nara and Choza Akamishi in Inoichi's living room. Ryo, you've done great. This is great help to the village, said Shikaku Nara. Shikaku Nisan, you're being too polite. I'm a member of the Inoshikacho Alliance. I must contribute with all I can. Well, stop this now, this is awkward. Choza was really uncomfortable with the awkward way they were talking in. Inoichi nodded in agreement with him. You two always having something to say, what a drag. Here Shikaku, don't be so serious, take some chips. Choza gave a bag of chips to his friend. You made me invite Ryo on purpose. Isn't there something you want to talk about? Ah, that's right. I was trying to get to something. Inoichi reminded Shikaku of something important that they've been thinking about for a long time. Nisan, you were saying. Ryo, you're the disciple of Kushina Ni-san. You should know about this too. Is it about the disappearance of the third Hokage? Yes. You know that once the war begins, our first enemy will be the sand. Their puppeteers are masters of using poison. We need the support to medical ninja of the hospital. So in this war, I want you to take the position of captain of the medical team. Shikaku Nisan, why? Ryo didn't immediately agree, and asked why. In the battle against the sand, more than half of our clan's warriors will be there. If the captain of the medical team is one of us, we'll have much better chances to survive. And there's another thing, over 70% of our medical ninja go to the sand. Being their captain, you'll gain their trust, and this will help to a great extent with our position in the village. Shikaku finished his words and waited for Ryo to respond. Ryo originally wanted to fight in the battlefield of the Land of Earth. The Yonbai Jinchuriki, Rashi, was always on his mind. But what Shikaku just said are valid arguments. Between the interest of the three clans and his personal vendetta, Ryo chose the former. Well, Ryo, no, go prepare yourself for war. We still have things to discuss. After he agreed, Inoichi sent him out. After some time, Inoichi sighed with relief. Shikaku, thanks God you know about this. I didn't think about what happened to my father. If we let him go to the Land of Earth, consequences would have been unthinkable. I suddenly remembered that. Now Ryo is not strong enough. We must try our best to protect him. His talent is highly valued by everyone, and he's the future of our clans, said Shikaku. What really made Shikaku want Ryo as captain of the medical team was that he remembered the death of Akihito Yamanaka, who was killed by Rashi, the Four Tails Jinchuriki. This was all made up to protect Ryo from following his grudge. However, Ryo thought that the Inoshikacho alliance really needed him in that position and was preparing himself to do the job the proper way. Chapter 48, High-Level Meeting. In the conference room of the Hokage office, the third, Jiraiya, Orochimaru, the two advisors, Danzo, and all the head of clans were gathered. Everyone, Jiraiya has brought us the news from the Sand Village. The third Hokage has disappeared along the Fire Country's borders. The Sand are now using this as excuse to invade our land. The third Hokage's face showed his burden. He knew that if they have a war with the Sand, they won't just have them as enemies. It will probably end up as an all-out war between all villages just like before. Thinking about this, he couldn't keep himself from remembering the horrid consequences of the two previous wars. Konoha is the hidden village of the Fire Country. This country is strategically linking the north to the south. The ecological environment it has is also the best of all 5 major countries and suitable for growing crops and for living in general. Between its location, its environment, and its powerful hidden village, the Fire Country was the strongest in the whole world. Such a prosperous country naturally will always have the eyes of its neighboring ones on it. They crave its land and its resources. Originally, in Hashirama's era, he and Uchiha Madara were strong enough to dominate the ninja world. But after their battle in the Valley of the End and Madara's death, and soon after that Hashirama followed. This took away the obvious edge that Konoha had, leading to the eruption of the First World War to fight over those resources. Translator note: I think Hashirama was alive when the war broke out, but I think this is true in a sense. In the first Kage Summit, a fragile agreement was made, then the war went all out again after Hashirama's death. In the First World War, Tobirama Senju was Hokage. The tension between the Uchiha and Senju clans was still there. Even without Madara and Hashirama in its ranks, Konoha was still able to outpressure the other 4 villages. However, it suffered many losses as well. The 5 nations ended up signing a peace treaty, a chance to all of them to pick up their breaths. After the signing of the treaty, Hiruzen led Konoha after having the position of Hokage passed on to him by Tobirama, who died in the war. On the top of Konoha, he carefully managed and developed the village for 20 years. 20 years of peace were enough to make Konoha prosperous again. Then there was the Second World War. Konoha was at its peak with the likes of the 3 RDS disciples, the legendary Sunin, the White Fang Sakumo Heitake, and Dan Kato among its ranks. These outstanding young ninja led Konoha to victory by the time the war ended. Hokage-sama, Hokage-sama, Hiruzen. Homura Mitokadu's voice interrupted the 3 RDS thoughts. Oh, I'm sorry, I've been thinking about something. The meeting continues. As I just said, the Sand Village are about to make their move, so what do you think? The third was back in the present and asked the people present. Sarutobi-sensei. The Sand Ninja should get special attention because of their unorthodox methods and their use of poisons, especially because of their use of poisons, said Jiraiya. That's true indeed. Back in the Second World War, even though we had Tsunade, many of our ninjas fell victim to the Sand's poisons. Today, we don't have her in our ranks anymore. These poisons will pose a much more serious problem, said Koharu Yudatan. More than that, Konoha's medical ninja have always been led by Tsunade. Now that she's gone, the deployment of the medical troops we have should also be a problem, added Homura. After all these intervention, the conference room fell into silence. These are indeed grave issues that should be resolved. Shikaku Nara was wondering about the way he should take to suggest Ryo as a substitute for Tsunade. Sarutobi-sensei, I think that Ryo Yamanaka can take Tsunade's place. Orochimaru's voice broke the silence in the conference room. Oh? Orochimaru, explain your point of view. Orochimaru's suggestion made the eyes of the third light up. Ryo was indeed a good choice. Sarutobi-sensei, first of all, Ryo-kun is the closest to Tsunade in level when it comes to medical ninjutsu. Second, the Yamanakas have been always loyal to Konoha. The only problem is his qualifications and rank. Can we make people accept his leadership? Listening to Orochimaru, the third was nodding in agreement frequently. After he finished listening, he was more and more convinced. What do you think? The third asked for everyone's opinions. The Uchiha clan agrees. The Hyuga clan agrees. The Sarutobi clan agrees. The Nara clan agrees. The Akamika clan agrees. The Yamanaka clan agrees. With the exception of the Inoshikacho alliance, none of the heads of clans were interested in the position of the head of the medical team. There were many medical ninja in the village. But Ryo was a rare talent, the only one comparable to Tsunade. Everybody nodded in agreement. It seemed like Ryo's position was guaranteed. Wait, the old man disagrees. The sudden opposition from Danzo wasn't easy to swallow by the heads of clans present. They have all just agreed and now, he's going against all of them. Actually, Danzo just couldn't let this pass. According to his point of view, Ryo was just a 9-year-old. Yes, he's great with medical ninjutsu, but to let a child be a team captain? That's absolutely unacceptable. Danzo, tell us why you're against this proposition. The third didn't have a good look on his face. He just nodded, and all head of clans agreed, and now his old comrade is the one opposing? Sarutobi, it's just like Orochimaru said. Ryo Yamanaka's rank and qualification cannot be accepted by the public. Danzo-san, I just said that we should convince the public, not that they cannot be convinced. Said Orochimaru. Well, no one should ever question Ryo's qualification again. It is enough for him that he brought Sakumo Hatake back from the dead at the age of 5 when no one else was able to do that. As the third mentioned the name of Sakumo, Danzo backed down for a second. He understood what the third meant. The events that happened with Sakumo are ones he'll never forget. Under the Hokage's pressure, Danzo was only able to nod. The heads of the Inoshikacho alliance looked at each other in disbelief, they did not expect things to go so smoothly. First, it was Orochimaru's proposal, then the agreement of the third, followed by the agreement by all heads of clans. Even Danzo's opposition was suppressed by the third. Well, now that we all agree, the captain of the medical team will be Ryo Yamanaka. So now. Wait a minute, Sarutobi-sensei, Ryo Yamanaka is still a genin. Take a look at this. Right when the third was about to move on to the next topic, Jiraiya interrupted him. Jiraiya's point was very simple. By developing the healing stone, Ryo benefited the village and all its upcoming generations. The village is being very secretive about it for many reasons. The third glared at his student. Of course he knew that Ryo was just a genin. He intended on promoting Ryo to the rank of Chunin after the end of this meeting. But he didn't expect Jiraiya to say come out about this in public. Ryo Yamanaka has indeed made a great contribution to the village. It is fitting that he gets promoted to the rank of Chunin. Koharu Yudatan knew what the third was planning to do, and just said it out loud. This time, even Danzo had no reason to object. Ryo's healing stone gives him so much credit, and he was indeed worthy of being a Chunin. The heads of clans wouldn't have stood against this even without if Jiraiya didn't expose that Ryo was the one behind stones. Afterwards, all the topics brought up in the meeting revolved about the specific preparations to the war against the Sand Village. Chapter 49, The Sand's Declaration of War. The next day after the meeting, Ryo was invited by the third to his office. He was already informed by Inoichi of the meeting's outcome on the previous day. Ryo never imagined that Orochimaru would actually speak up for him. He was so successful in medical ninjutsu that he was chosen as the head of the medical team. This was thanks to the Sunin's help. Ryo have been to the Hokage's office several times, and as usual he found the many guards waiting for him. The Hokage's office door opened wide, and behind it, the third was there waiting for Ryo's arrival. Hokage-sama. Ryo went straight in through the door. As he was entering, the three RD's eyes were locked on the documents in front of him on the table. When he heard Ryo's voice, he looked up and smiled. Ryo, you are finally here. Hokage-sama, why did you invite me? Ryo knew for sure that when it comes to high-level meetings, it's always better to act confused. I invited you for two things. First, you performed well as a ninja, saving the lives of many injured ninja. And in addition to that, you actually developed the healing stones. For that reason, the village has decided to promote you to the rank of Chunin. Thank you, Hokage-sama. No one gets upset when getting promotion and a raise. Ryo was no exception. Second, Ryo, as the Hokage, I hereby assign you as the head of the medical team going to the battlefield in the Wind Country. It is up to you to decide every detail related to your team, and you will be allowed to participate in the war conference. With those words, the third handed the appointment letter to Ryo. The 3RDS appointment was completely different from what Ryo has imagined. He has originally thought that his role would revolve around leading the medical team to heal illnesses and save lives. But Ryo, who was not expecting to be assigned as the head of the medical team not too long age, has now become one of the decision makers in the Wind Country battlefield. The third understood what was wrong when reading the letter. When seeing Ryo's face when he received it, he realized that there was something wrong with it. The authority given by this letter is just like the authority given to the former captain of the medical team, Tsunade. The 3RDS mind was too involved with the preparations the war. He would never give Ryo such an appointment letter if it wasn't for negligence. But being equivalent to the king of Konoha, the 3RDS word is not something that's to be taken lightly, nor is it something that can be taken back with ease. He wasn't going to change this letter. After all, although Ryo is just a 9-year-old, he is very sensible. Even if he attends the meetings, he won't be speaking up. This way, Ryo had an appointment that he shouldn't have been able to get in the first place. The first thing that Ryo, being the new head of the medical team, had to do was to assemble his team's members. In the third training ground, the members of the medical squad were quickly assembled. The number is quite large. Counting Ryo, there were 151 people on the field. Ryo made a rough estimate by looking at the crowd. Most of them were colleagues he knew from Konoha's hospital. There were about 20 to 30 new faces that he had never met before. And among the crowd, there was an old acquaintance of his, the Uchiha-mon, the one he fought to become a genin. Hello everyone. I'm Ryo Yamanaka. Most of you here are my colleagues from Konoha's hospital. I'm really glad that I'll get to fight alongside all of you. Ryo's opening remarks were really plain and simple, no passionate encouragement, and no boosting of their morals. He felt that there was no need for such things. He believed that unlike such nonsense, actions can actually prove everything he has to prove. He knew that at some point in time, there will be someone to disobey his, and that right then and there, his actions will speak up. After a brief self-introduction, Yamanaka Ryo started assessing the levels of his team members. There were 92 who could use healing for detoxification, and amongst them, only 12 were able to use the healing palm technique. These 12 individuals are all veteran ninjas in Konoha's hospital, and Ryo was really familiar with them. Those in the team that Ryo has never met before were actually fighting ninjas sent in by the village to protect the medical ninja alongside them. Among the stronger ones amongst them, there was a jonin from the Hyaga clan, Ming Hyaga. There was also Ryo's old acquaintance, Uchiha-mon, who is now a special jonin. Also among the stronger ones there were 2 Inoshikacho teams who were chinins. Ming and Mon shouldn't pose any problems for Ryo when working with him. The 2 teams from his alliance should be easy to deal with as well. The rest of the fighters also have skills that are beneficial. Some are good with seals, some are good with genjutsu, and others are good with traps. Ryo finished counting them. There were 126 medical ninjas including him, and 25 fighting ninjas. So he went on and divided the team into 5 groups based on the members' medical ninjutsu. A group made up of the 33 who cannot use healing to do detoxification, will be responsible for the treatment of minor injuries. The remaining 92 were divided into 4 groups that consist of 3 of the 12 veterans, with 20 of the others assisting them. Ryo will work solo, interfering whenever there is a problem that they cannot solve. After that, Ryo let everybody disperse, and sat down right there recalling the wind release jutsus demonstrated to him by Orochimaru. He sat down there until the afternoon, when Kushina and Minato arrived. Ryo, so you're here. We've been looking for you, and Jiraiya-sensei told us to wait for him in the 3rd training ground, said Kushina. Ryo, I heard you've become a chunin. Minato asked. Ryo nodded, as being promoted to that rank is trivial thing that's not worth hiding. Congrats! This is my congratulation present. Minato smiled and handed Ryo a special kunao. Ryo took in his hand, it was the Flying Thunder God kunao. On it, Minato's formula for the jutsu was engraved. Thank you Nisan. Ryo thanked Minato. On the other side, Kushina was a bit embarrassed because it was her own student, and she didn't actually prepare him any present. Noticing her embarrassment, Ryo said, Kushina and Isan, your present will wait for me to become a jonin just like you. Hearing Ryo's words, Kushina felt less awkward. For how long are you going to keep laughing and joking around? Jiraya's arrival interrupted the three. The fourth Hokage has been selected, and it didn't take him long to claim that the disappearance of his predecessors is the work of Konoha. They have declared war upon us. As Jiraiya finished his words, he gave a good look at the three in front of him. The war has started. Chapter 50, Expedition. The news about the Sand declaring war soon spread across Konoha. Even the villagers knew that war was coming. In the Hokage's office, the third was asking Jiraiya about the new Hokage. But Jiraiya didn't know much about him. He only had what he heard when he was on his mission in the Sand Village. Normally, a Kage should be one with experience on the battlefield, or one who is a prodigy and very famous in his village. But the new Hokage was someone that Konoha had no information about before he took over. Hokage-sama, this is intelligence from the battlefield in the Sand Country. An umbu came in and delivered a scroll to the third. He opened it quickly. He sent out some of the best umbu to get this information as soon as possible. The fourth Hokage is a male, of unknown age, and a magnet release blood limit skill user. His way of fighting is unknown. The prisoner of the Sand that we arrested said that he was able to beat Shikaku on his own in the desert. The last sentence of the scroll made the three RD's face gloomy. Suppressing Shikaku, the one-tailed beast in the desert, is a great feat. This man is not one you would want to underestimate. Here, you can read it as well. The third handed over the scroll to Jiraiya. After reading through it, his face showed the same expression as his sensei. Sarutobi-sensei, immediately send out the troops. This guy is too dangerous for Sakumo-san to fight alone. You're right. This new Hokage sounds really powerful. Not to mention that they still have Cho, that old woman is Kage tier. This should too troublesome for Sakumo to deal with on his own. The third understood how serious this matter was. He was in a hurry to send out the troops. Umbu, call Ryo Yamanaka in. The third told the umbu who delivered the scroll. In a few moments, Ryo was there at the office. After the third permitted it, Jiraiya passed the scroll to him. Ryo read through it. In the manga, the fourth Hokage wasn't that relevant all along the story. During the execution of the plan to destroy Konoha, he was killed by Orochimaru. Then he was summoned by Kabuto using Edo Tensei. Before reading the scroll, Ryo felt that the fourth Hokage shouldn't be able to face Jiraiya in his sage mode. But then he read that he was able to suppress Shikaku in the desert. Knowing that the Ichibai can regenerate indefinitely in there, this means that the fourth is actually stronger than what he showed in the events of the manga. Ryo, you can see in the intelligence too that this is a tough one. Ryo, Jiraiya, get ready to set off tomorrow. You will be set off tomorrow morning to join Sakumo. You are to fight off the Sand Ninja. Yes, Hokage-sama. After the two left the Hokage's office, the two of them gathered their teams. On the third training ground, Ryo and his medical squad set the time to depart. He then let the team disband to prepare themselves to leave. The third gave him a very tight time limit, so Ryo also had a few things to prepare, and had to say goodbye to his family and friends. Kunaos, explosive tags, shurikens. Ryo went and stocked up on all the tools he thought he would need. Then he went and used his sage mode to sense the positions of Kushina and the others. Ryo took Kushina to Ichiraku to have a bowl of ramen and to tell her that he was about to set off. As her only disciple is about to leave Konoha for war, she was very nervous and told him about what he should pay attention to on the battlefield. After saying goodbye to Kushina, he went to the Ninja Academy. Not too long ago, Yujao started going there. He didn't want to disturb her, but he looked at her from a distance to keep her image in his heart. Afterwards, he went to the Forest of Death. Minato was not summoned yet, so he, Kakashi and the others continued to train in there. Hey Kakashi, Obito, Rin. Ryo and the three greeted each other. Hey, what brings you here Ryo Yaro? Obito's words were harsh as ever. I'm leaving to the Wind Country, so I came to say goodbye to you, said Ryo. What? You are leaving? Hearing the news, Obito didn't even know how to say goodbye. So you're going? Be careful of the battlefield. If something bad happens to you it would make Kushina really sad, said Minato. Nisan, that's not the best thing to say to someone going to the battlefield, you know. Ryo's answer shook Minato. Sorry. I said something that I shouldn't have said. But Ryo, please be careful. Thank you Nisan, I will. Kakashi, Obito, Rin, do you want to say anything before I go? Ryo turned to the three of them. Ryo, I look forward to see you next time. Once he said that, Kakashi got back again to training. Ryo, come back alive and stay safe. Rin's tone had a bit of a cry within it, making Ryo feel uncomfortable. He couldn't bear the atmosphere of goodbyes, so he waved in them and turned to leave. Hold on a minute, Ryo Yaro. One day, I will beat you. Oh. I look forward to that day. After he finished his words, he used lightning chakram mode to immediately leave. Ryo went back home. He told his mother that he was going to the battlefield. She did not say a word. She knew that her son was no ordinary child, and she could only support him. Chin started to pack up clothes and food for her son. Ryo didn't know what to say, but he knew how terrible she must have felt about this war. At the end of the day, neither the mother nor the son spoke, and Ryo took the package his mother prepared for him. The next morning, he passed by her room, standing at the entrance for a bit, and then turned away. At that moment, he heard his mother, who already burst into tears, saying out loud, "Ryo, please stay safe." At Konoha's gate, after listening to an impassioned speech from the third, the support teams set off to the Wind Country. War, kid. What do you think that there is such a thing? Jiraiya asked Ryo this question when looking at the team. Uneven distribution of resources can lead to war, jealousy leads to war, hatred causes war. No matter what, there will always be war somewhere. Jiraiya-san, you've been through a lot, having many battles. You know that this question probably has no better answer, said Ryo. Indeed. There will always be a war somewhere around the world. In fact, I've been looking for a way to reach true peace, but it's a shame that I can't find that yet. Kid, do you think there will be a day when people get along with each other? I don't know, but I do know that if we lose this war, Konoha's villagers will never get to see such a day. Come on Jiraiya-san, we have no time to lose. Haha. You little devil. Who's the sage here? Do you think I'm being confused by this? He was laughing loudly and heroically like his usual self. Now that's Jiraiya-san that I know. Let's go. In this war, I, Ryo Yamanaka, have to make a name for myself. Chapter 51, First Blood. Medical ninjas need to carry around a large number of medical devices, so they move around slower than combat ninjas. Although Ryo and Jiraiya left Konoha together, Ryo ended up falling behind a few days later. Captain, we have just left the safe zone. We are no longer that far from the battlefield, said a ninja of the medical squad. Ming, use your Byakugan to investigate what's in front of us. If there is no enemy in range, we'll advance. Be careful, said Ryo to Ming Hyaga. He nodded and opened his Byakugan and observed their surroundings. Ryo was also cautious about the surroundings and examining them himself. Captain, no enemies found within 1 kilometer ahead. Ming, we'll do this every km. We don't want to accidentally fall in an ambush. Ryo knew that the medical unit was particularly important to the ninjas on the battlefield of the Wind Country, so he was really careful. The unit continued to move forwards. Every km, Ming would explore the surroundings to confirm safety. After going 5 kilometers in, he found sand ninjas waiting for them in an ambush. Captain, I found sand ninjas in front of us, 27 of them. Stop. Mon, go ahead, and try to find out their team composition. Ryo made everybody stop and sent Mon Uchiha ahead. Ryo knew well that Mon was a strong ninja. After all, they've fought each other before. Over the course of the few past days, they both have been chatting and Ryo learned that he opened the 3-dotted Sharingan. Realizing this, Ryo felt both envious and helpless. After all, his Sharingan didn't make any progress over the past 2 years. Soon Mon was back. Captain, in the front, there is a sensor ninja, there are 5 Jonins on that team, and the leader is an elite Jonin for sure. The rest should be Chunin level. Ryo made an assessment of power gap between the two teams. 5 of the enemies are Jonins, the leader is an elite one. Counting the medical ninjas who can use ninja scalpels, the teams are close to equal in combat level. One Inoshikacho team stays behind with 7 fighting ninjas to protect the medical team. The medical team members who can use ninja scalpels will come with me to ambush Sand Ninja. Ryo assigned everyone with the tasks fitting their skills. In fact, Ryo could have chosen to try to avoid this ambush and continue to advance. However, he knew that if they were caught by that team, they would suffer great losses due to the presence of weaker members on his team. As a captain, he had the responsibility to protect his men. And his decision was relying on the presence of the Byakugan on his team that can grasp the enemy's movements and allow him to attack when appropriate. 7 members of the medical team knew how to use the chakra scalpel. Along with 23 fighting ninjas who came with Ryo, they took hidden spots to ambush the enemy with the help of Ming. Ryo alone was in front of everyone. Soon after Ryo and the others made their ambush, the Sand Ninjas appeared. They obviously also knew that there were ninjas that were coming their way. Ryo hid his presence using the technique he obtained from the Sand Spy at the Women's Hot Spring Hotel. This was the first time that Ryo used this secret ability of his family, which allows him to learn ninjutsu just by reading minds. Because of this, the Sand's Sensor Ninja didn't find him. After the Sand Ninja went beyond him, he condensed a ninja scalpel, and entered the Ice Elementization mode, then activated his Lightning Chakram mode. With the Ice Lighting Chakram mode, he blinked and appeared behind the Sand's Sensor Ninja, slitting his throat. The Sand Ninja who were protecting their sensor companion were fast to attack Ryo, shurikens were thrown at him from every direction. The Sand Ninja were quick to retreat when realizing that their shurikens did absolutely nothing to Ryo. Once again, he disappeared instantly with his Lightning Chakram mode. From the moment Ryo went in on them, until he disappeared again, only 5 seconds have passed. Most of the Sand Ninja didn't even have time to respond to his attack, and the few who attacked him weren't even able to do any damage to him. This way Ryo scored first blood in the Third World War. Ryo's epic performance did not just make the Sand Ninja panic, it also stunned his teammates who were observing him. In particular, Mon Uchiha, who had the Sharingan activated, couldn't actually fully capture Ryo's movements despite the fact that his Sharingan was 3-dotted. This exceeded all his expectations. Don't panic. Take Tanaka's corpse and move on. The enemy has killed our sensor ninja because he didn't want us to move forward. There must be something ahead of us. The Sand Jonin leading the team was absolutely right. Ryo used the spectacular Lightning Chakram mode to kill that ninja for 2 reasons. On one hand, this protected his companions from being located, and on the other, he wanted to shake the hearts of the Sand Ninja who were coming in so they would just retreat. But they continued to advance, until they stepped into the ambush of the medical squad. The first to make a move was Uchiha Man, turning one of the enemy's Chunins into coal by using his clan's signature fireball technique. Ming was not to be outdone, using his gentle fist technique to kill another one. Others also rushed in, as the Sand Ninja who had no eyes went right into the trap made by Ryo and his mates. 9 of the Sand's Chunins were taken out in a flash, and Ryo cut off the arm of one of the Jonins. Konoha scum! The leader of the enemies felt so humiliated by this that he rushed towards Ryo directly. Ryo went straight to his ice mode, while his arm was condensing a ninja scalpel. In his ice mode, his speed isn't on par with that of the elite Jonin who led the enemy team. He took several hits from him. Abominable, futon, great slashing tornado. Ryo felt really grateful that Orochimaru demonstrated this technique to him. The moment the attack went his way, he activated his Lightning Chakram mode and it was easy for him to avoid being hit. Now it's my turn. Now that he forced Ryo into the Ice Lightning Chakram mode, the Jonin was no longer a match for him at all. All he saw was a flash before his head was cut off by Ryo's chakra scalpel. After killing their leader, Ryo went on and annihilated the whole enemy team along with his squad. The medical team had 3 severely injured members, along with 5 minor injuries. But in return, they totally wiped out their opponents. This ambush was, by all means, a huge success. With the exception of Mon Uchiha, everyone on the team thought that Ryo was just a medical ninja who exceeds them in medical skill. Now that they saw him fight, they learned that he was a powerful one as well. In Naruto's world, the strong are worshipped, and all the members of the team who entered the battle with completely convinced with Ryo being their leader. Ryo feared that night would fall on them, so he ordered everyone to hurry up and bury the sand ninjas, and the medical team continued approaching Konoha's camp. Chapter 52, The First Battle in the Wind Country. After encountering the sand ninja, the medical team advanced at full speed and finally arrived at Konoha's camp that night. Sakumo and Jiraiya were waiting for Ryo's arrival. The sand ninja have been really provocative on many occasions today. But Sakumo's camp had no medical team on their side, so they could only take those provocations and wait. As soon as Ryo entered the camp, he was called to Sakumo's tent. "Ryo, you're finally here. We have no time for rekindling. Let's cut to the chase. What is the status of your medical team?" Sakumo asked. "They are okay, we've had only a few injuries, and they are tired. We encountered a sand ninja squad on the way here, but that's been dealt with already. We had no casualties." Ryo briefed Sakumo in on the state of his team. "Good. Let your men get some good rest tonight, for tomorrow we'll be facing the sand." As soon as Ryo realized that the sand ninja were in a good condition, he decided to go to battle. "Were you so worried?" Ryo somehow felt that looking at Sakumo and Jiraiya. "Oh Ryo, you have no idea. These days before you came, there have been provocations every day, and occasionally the sand would send a puppet master attacking us. Without the presence of medical ninja to detoxify those who were poisoned, we didn't know if we could win this battle. Morales were low, but now that you guys are here, we must take this battle." "Is that so? Then Sakumo-san, what are your plans?" Ryo asked. "According to the intel we have from our Hyoga and Aberme ninjas, the sand camp has two strong Kage class fighters. One is the 4th Kaze Kage, and the other is Old Master Cho. Tomorrow I'll try to deal with Cho, and Jiraiya will take on the Kaze Kage. Sakumo-san, how about the rest of their troops? Are there no tactics planned? Tomorrow, the battlefield will be the Wind Country's sand desert. We'll be able to rely on the Hyoga's Byakugans so we don't get ambushed, but it won't be easy to ambush people in their own terrain." Jiraiya answered him. "You are right Jiraiya, and we have to fight tomorrow. We do have your medical team to save our men on the spot. Konoha's ninjas' overall level is superior. As long as we find a way to deal with poisoning, we are bound to win," said Sakumo. Ryo is not good at arguing. The battle tomorrow will surely be fierce. In the sand camp, the 4th Kaze Kage and Cho were discussing the plans for tomorrow. While there were the Aberme and the Hyoga clans on Konoha's side investigating, the sand naturally had their own means of obtaining information. As soon as Ryo's team reached the camp, the 4th Kaze Kage received the news. He speculated that the medical team is going to follow Jiraiya, who arrived earlier, on the same route that he took. Originally, the 4th wanted to use the absence of a medical team to find a way to attack those in the camp and dispose of them by the way of poison, either himself or by the hands of Cho, but the Byakugan and the Aberme's insects were enough to prevent any sudden attacks. He wanted to avoid a battle in Konoha. He knew that with no terrain advantage, the sand village doesn't stand a chance. There was nothing else for him to do but to harass Konoha's camp while sending a strong team to ambush the medical squad in order to kill as many as possible of its members. Seeing that the whole medical team didn't carry any victims, he realized that the team he sent has failed. "Raza, it seems like your plan has failed," said Cho when learning about the intel. "Yes. I suspect that even their medical team had another Kage tier ninja protecting it," said the 4th, with a gloomy face. "Well, that might be the case indeed. But the ninjas we sent were no Genins. Could the medical team go through unscathed when attacked by 6 Jonins and many Chinins? Maybe they just never caught the medical team at all." Cho was trying to analyze the situation. "That's impossible. Tanaka was on the mission, and he's one of the best sensor ninjas in the whole village." The 4th rejected Cho's suggestion. "Then there is yet another Kage tier ninja on their side. Who do you think that could be, Raza? It can only be the eldest son of the 3rd Hokage, or maybe this uprising new disciple of Jiraiya named Minato Namikaze. I feel it's the latter," said Raza. "Minato Namikaze? It that the brat who learned the 2nd Hokage's Flying Thunder God?" Cho wasn't as impressed with Minato, but she knew that he learned such a great technique. In the early days of the Third World War, Minato was not as famous. But when they knew that he had improved the 2NDS Flying Thunder God, they knew that he was already on the level of a Kage. "This kid aside, Sakumo Haytake will be mine tomorrow. You deal with Jiraiya." Cho was looking for revenge for her son and her daughter-in-law. She's been dreaming about this day for years. Well, tomorrow the big battle will take place in the desert. I'll be able to use my gold dust technique, and I'm getting better with it. I will not lose. Cho nodded and left the 4TH's tent. The next day, Konoha's camp got busy in the morning, and the atmosphere was really tense. Ninjas quickly gathered and Ryo's medical team was on standby. Getting off. With Sakumo's order, most of Konoha's ninjas set foot on the battlefield. The yellow desert's sand was in the way, blocking their vision. Around Konoha's army, the Abear maze insects were hovering, and the Hyogas were watching their surroundings with their Byakugans. Sakumo-sama, Jiraiya-sama. Not too far from us there are many sand ninjas. The Abear clan members received the warning from their insects and immediately reported it to their leaders. Stop! Hyoga shinobis, look around and see if there is an ambush waiting for us. After investigating, the Hyoga members of the squad found no trace of an ambush. Sakumo gave the order to advance until the two forces met in the desert. Are you the fourth Kazekage? When the two sides met each other, Jiraiya asked the red-headed ninja in the lead. Cut the crap! Sakumo Hatake, die! The fourth Kazekage had no chance to answer, as Cho jumped on Sakumo. But he wasn't going to be explaining anything either, he also directly attacked Jiraiya. When the commanders started fighting, their troops followed, colliding as well. The first battle of the Third World War has begun. Chapter 53, Raza's Might. Sakumo and Cho are old rivals, and are familiar with each other's strengths and fighting methods. Sakumo should have a slight edge on her in overall strength, but Cho's skill with using chakra threads to control puppets is not something to be underestimated. After all, she was also a quasi-cage tier ninja. With her superb mastery of puppet, Sakumo wasn't able to land hits on her. On the other side, what was even more spectacular was the battle of Jiraiya against the fourth Kazekage. Raza had the magnet release Kekii Genkai. The manga does not indicate what releases are fused to get magnet release, but Ryo speculated that it was a fusion of the wind and thunder properties. Translator note, by elimination, one can speculate that it's actually a fusion of wind and earth release, as Raza had wind, earth, and water release in addition to his magnet and yin release abilities. Check out Narutopedia for more info. Someone as strong as a Kage must have more than just the ability to use one nature attribute. Most elites actually have two or more. Naturally, the fourth was no exception. From his use of magnet release, Ryo can know that he has at least the control over both thunder and wind. Just like his opponent, Jiraiya understood more than most people about ninjutsu. He's inherited the mastery of the third who had flawless technique himself. It was difficult to predict the outcome of the fight. With the exception of thunder release, Jiraiya was a master of all other nature transformations. But the fourth Kazekage was also extraordinary in ninjutsu. I didn't expect that the 3RDS disciple would be this great of a ninja. If we were fighting elsewhere, it wouldn't be so easy for me to beat you, said Raza. You mean that since we are in the desert, you'll be able to easily beat me? Jiraiya was able to gauge his enemy's level during the fight, and he knew that he shouldn't be able to beat him unless he enters his sage mode. Don't you have the Hyoga clan and their Byakugan? Don't they notice anything different with the desert's sand? The sand controlled by Raza was rushing towards Jiraiya. You control sand? Then you are the Ichibi's Jinchuriku? No, you don't have the seals on your body. Jiraiya didn't pay much attention to the sand moving towards him, and just made an earth-style wall to protect himself. What? The wall was easily crumbled by the sand wave. Jiraiya looked like he was going to lose when he was wounded by the sand rushing his way. Jiraiya, it's over. The fourth Kazekage proclaimed victory and wanted to finish off his opponent. Right when Jiraiya was hit, he activated one of Ryo's healing stones. The fourth Kazekage also launched a B-grade wind release jutsu. With the help of the healing stone, the damage taken from it was controlled. So Jiraiya was able to avoid a fatal blow from the fourth Kazekage. Summoning Jiraiya needed to recover a bit from his injuries. Gamabunta would help in holding Raza back. Gamabunta, be careful. This guy's sand is heavier than normal. Oh, I won't be as useless as you. Gamabunta's words couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, the Kazekage increased his vigilance. Many years of fighting experience made him understand that Jiraiya was on to something special. Is that his summon? Just like rumored, it's a giant red toad. On the battlefield, Konoha's ninjas whose morals were low because Jiraiya was injured saw Gamabunta and regained the will to fight. Ryo got his team working on healing the poisoned and injured Konoha ninja, while sneaking himself into the battle. Konoha wasn't winning. It is true that the overall level of Konoha's ninjas is superior to that of Sans, just like Sakumo said. But in this environment, the two sides became almost equal in strength. In terms of numbers, Konoha had their medical team on the field, along with over 8,000 fighting ninjas. But the Sand Village had over 12,000 people. It was very clear to Ryo that if Sakumo or Jiraiya are beaten in this battle, Konoha's army would be slaughtered. Among them, there were nearly 300 from the Inoshikacho alliance. A moment ago, Ryo saw Jiraiya use summoning to bring Gamabunta to the battlefield. He thought of using it to bring Gamahiro along. This won't just help defeat the fourth Hokage, it might also draw attention away from Jiraiya, giving him time to recover. It was impossible for Ryo to just sit and watch. He had to fight for the sake of the Inoshikacho alliance, and also for Jiraiya. When he came into the battlefield, he found Jiraiya buried under the fourth Hokage's sand. He activated his Sharingan and found out that while his head was on top of the sand, his arms underneath it were raised with his palms against each other. He was clearly trying to enter Sage mode. Raza's gold dust was made out of sand mixed with gold particles. For that reason, it was much heavier and far more destructive than ordinary sand. There was no way for Gamabunta to beat such a powerful attack, so he was just giving support for Jiraiya. Summoning. Outside the battlefield, a huge cloud of white smoke rose as Ryo summoned Gamahiro. Hero. Please, the targets are the sand ninjas. Good. Gamahiro was a true warhead. He would never let go an opportunity to show off his skills. He was like a wolf amongst the sheep. He rushed into the crowd and raised his pair of short swords and swept through them. The sand ninjas panicked and used all kinds of ninjutsu to attack him. However, Ryo entered the ice lightning chakra mode. Every now and then, he would blink in and use the chakra scalpel to slit the throats of his enemies while avoiding their large-scale jutsus. The fourth noticed him along with Gamahiro and how they killed 4 Jonins and God knows how many Chunins. He couldn't stand letting Ryo kill so many sand ninjas. This was the mystery third fighter who was close to the level of a cage. So Raza turned his attention from Jiraiya and rushed to attack Ryo. You're leaving? I finished getting ready to take you on. Of course, Jiraiya would never let Raza attack Ryo. He finally entered Sage mode. The first time you summon us, it's such a horrifying place. Shima complained. Ma, Jiraiya-chan probably had no other choice. No need to be mad. So Jiraiya-chan, who's your opponent? Why did you need us? Said Fukazaku. Boss Eni-sama, I'm really sorry. This time I'm facing the fourth Hokage. I can't beat him without your help. While the three were chatting, Raza launched an attack. He was so anxious to go take out Ryo, so he wanted to finish Jiraiya off immediately. The gold dust turned into a wave and went quickly towards Jiraiya. This sand has gold in it. Fukazaku was able to see the essence of Raza's attack with his perception. He once again used an earth release wall to hold it off. But this time, it was infused with Senjutsu chakra that greatly amplified its strength, so it was able to hold the gold dust back. The fourth Hokage looked at Jiraiya in awe, noticing the 2 toads on his shoulders. He formed seals and the gold sand on the ground started surrounding Jiraiya. Sand coffin, sand funeral. The tremendous pressure made by the sand got Jiraiya in trouble. Jiraiya-chan, create a large amount of oil. Said Shima. Senpo, Gomen. The gold was dissolved due to the extremely high temperature, and the sand was also turned into solid clear crystal. Chapter 54, The Sand's Retreat. Raza didn't expect that Jiraiya would find a way out of his coffin so easily. He wanted to use the sand coffin to trap Jiraiya, then sand funeral to at least injure him, then finish him up to go and face Ryo. But this was nothing for Jiraiya in Sage mode. Without any information whatsoever, Jiraiya was able to defeat 3 of Pain's paths with this mode. Raza was good, but nowhere close to Pain. By entering Sage mode, the roles were reversed, and Raza had to be on the defensive. On the other side, Sakumo was also close to scoring a victory over Cho. She was starting to get tired. He was just starting and was still able to avoid all of her attacks while finding the chance to cut one of her chakra threads. Cho was slowly running out on chakra. Sakumo only had to keep his rhythm, and was just a matter of time. The fourth Hokage wanted to support him, but he sighed of frustration when looking at Jiraiya and Ryo. However, at Ryo's side, the situation was not looking so bright, as he and Gamahiro were surrounded by 4 elite sand jonins. And this situation are completely different. Ryo shouldn't be at the level allowing him to beat 4 elite jonins of such caliber on his own. But he did have Gamahiro's help. "Hiro, we are in a pinch, have any ideas?" Ryo asked. "I'll use water, you use lightning. Paralyze them first and then use ice to teleport and kill the one on the upper left corner. I feel that he's the most dangerous one amongst them." "Good. Then I'm going all out. Hiro, remember to jump when using your water attack so you avoid getting accidentally hit." "Got it. Let's go." Water release, gunshot. Gamahiro shot out large condensed blasts of water from his mouth. The water attacks forced the sand jonins to use their wind attacks to splatter them, and this caused the water to splash all over. By the time Gamahiro was in the air, Ryo has already started forming his seals. Lightning release, thunderbolt. The lightning chakra was conducted with the water. In this sandy desert, water disappears quickly. Ryo should utilize this opportunity against the 4 jonins as fast as possible. Just like Hiro told him, he teleported to the upper left corner. The elite jonin whose movements were slowed down by the lightning attack had his heart pierced through it by Ryo. "Ichiro! Damn kid!" The remaining 3 couldn't stand seeing Ryo kill their companion, so they all rushed towards them. It was clear to Ryo that he couldn't take on all 3 of them. After all the fighting he's been doing and going all out just now to kill their companion, his chakra levels went really low. Right when Gamahiro landed on the ground, Ryo took a soldier food pill and used the lightning chakra mode to blink over Hiro's head. "Ryo, can you still fight?" Gamahiro asked. "No problem, I can find a way to take out one more," Ryo answered. "These 3 are tough, Ryo. Which one are you going to deal with?" "The one just ahead of me. Me killing his companion has made him lose his sanity. The ones who are the angriest are easier to deal with," said Shanzhong Yuan. Ryo used ice to teleport once again and went this time 3 meters behind the one who's lost his temper. A jonin's fighting abilities are not to be underestimated. Ryo did not want to be too close to him. So from the distance of 3 meters, he used Chidori Iso, an attack that was developed by Sasuke in the manga. The sand ninja who was out of his mind did not expect such a ranged attack from Ryo. But in the end, a jonin is a jonin, and he was able to juke the hit and avoid lethal damage. Only his left arm was pierced by Chidori Iso. Ryo wasn't able to kill anyone with his sneak attack and he knew that he was exposed. He returned using his ice teleportation to Gamahiro's back. "Can you jump out? Go to the 4th Hokage. Ryo, you're almost out of chakra. My parents are there so you don't have to worry about Jiraiya-san." Gamahiro tried to get Ryo to retreat. "Don't worry, I just want to scare the 4th Hokage off and make him retreat with the sand ninja. Even if we win this battle, Konoha will have many losses if this goes on," Ryo said. Seeing how stubborn Ryo was, Gamahiro could only go with his plan. Ignoring the 3 jonins' provocations, he did all he could to get him to the 4th. "Ma, Jiraiya-chan, Hiro-chan is coming." While he was fighting 4th Hokage, Jiraiya heard Fukazaku's words and quickly withdrew. Raza did not have the strong perception of Sage Mode, but the Jiraiya's sudden withdrawal made him nervous. His instinct told him to evade to the side. He barely avoided being hit by Gamahiro who fell the ground making a huge impact at the desert's sand. "Hiro-chan! What are you doing here?" asked Fukazaku. "I summoned him, Fukazaku-sama." "Ryo-chan, and what are you doing here?" Fukasaku looked at Ryo and asked him. "Of course I'm here to help you. Together, we should be able to seriously injure, and perhaps even kill the 4th Hokage. Not even he should be able to beat us." Saying that, Ryo entered Sage Mode. The 4th saw the changes in Ryo's face. This kid's changed similarly to Jiraiya. Even though he doesn't have toads on his shoulders, he should be strong. Raza was already beginning to retreat. He turned to Sicho and he found her out of breath and on the verge of defeat. "Sand ninjas, retreat!" Biting his teeth, the 4th Hokage issued the order to retreat. Konoha's ninja were not chasing their enemies. In such an environment, they would just get themselves in a trap if they do that. Ending the situation like this made Sakumo really satisfied. Such a momentum-defining battle shouldn't be easy to win. In Konoha's camp, Sakumo, Jiraiya, 6 jonins, and Ryo were gathered in Sakumo's tent. The first battle with the sand is over. Let's gather our thoughts. The post-war summary meeting began. Chapter 55, Passing on Modern Medicine. Like in Konoha's camp, 7 of the Sand's elite jonins along with Cho, were gathered in Raza's tent to discuss the war. The main topic was the new Konoha ninja Ryo Yamanaka. The third Hokage has disappeared along the borders of the Fire Country. Over 12,000 sand ninjas were gathered for revenge. In addition to 3 people who were close or equal in power to a Hokage, 8 of the Sand's elite jonin were there, along with close to 1,000 chinins. The rest were genins. Amongst the 12,000, the strongest were Raza, Cho, and the Ichibai Jinchuriki Bunpyaku. 4 of the 8 elite jonins were from the puppeteer division. The rest were the 4 that Ryo faced in battle. Raza's face was so heavy in the meeting. In this battle, the Sand Ninja have lost on all fronts, even losing one of their elite jonins. The most unacceptable thing for Raza was the fact that the one who killed that jonin, and forced the Sand to retreat, was actually a child who seemed to be only 11 or 12 years old. Konoha doesn't deserve to be such a cradle for geniuses. Sakumo, the Sunin, and now this Ryo Yamanaka. Cho-Bachan sighed. Kazekage-sama, this brat killed Ichiro with a strange sneak attack. He took my arm the same way. What kind of an attack did he use? Make it clear, Hagu. The Sand Jonin described Ryo's the fight that he had with his fellow Jonins against Ryo. So he's using the lightning chakram mode, with an extreme speed, ice, and teleportation, said Raza after listening to the Jonin, to summarize the information they had about Ryo. Are you sure he was teleporting? Wasn't it more like extremely fast movement using the lightning chakram mode? Raza asked. I'm pretty sure that I can distinguish between the lightning chakram mode and teleportation, said Hagu. Raza, could it be the second Hokage's flying thunder god? Cho-Bachan saw Minato in the previous World War. She was so impressed by that technique. The description of Ryo's teleportation reminded her of that. Hugo, did Ryo Yamanaka use any special weapons? Hokage-sama, he has only used one ninja scalpel from start to finish, and he didn't use any other weapons. The 4th Kazekage learned from Cho about the Flying Thunder God, and he learned that Ryo had no weapons. Now he also speculates that Ryo's teleportation technique is not Thunder Chakram mode, but something else. But what Raza was more interested in was the technique that both Ryo and Jiraiya have used. In that state, Jiraiya's power, speed, reflexes, and defense were all enhanced to a great extent. The power-up was so substantial that it gave Jiraiya the upper hand after being conquered by Raza for most of the fight before that. Cho-Bachan, did you ever hear of such a technique? Raza told Cho about what happened and asked her if she knew the technique Jiraiya was using. She sighed and took a while to think, then said, it might be the Sage mode used by the first Hokage. I have only heard of this technique, and I didn't expect it to be anything more than a myth. Sage mode is real. The Rikudo Sennin was a user of this technique. It enhances ninjutsu, taijutsu, and perception to a great extent. This is what Shikaku just told me. The old monk sitting in the corner, who was silent the whole time, spoke out. What are you talking about? The Rikudo Sennin is just a myth, said one of the elite jonins. The old monk ignored him and did not say anything else. He closed his eyes like he fell asleep. After listening to Bunpyaku, Raza became pretty much sure that the technique Jiraiya has used was Sage mode. Its effects on Jiraiya's performance went hand in hand with how Bunpyaku described Sage mode. On the other side, Ryo and Jiraiya were discussing the power that the Sand Ninja have shown. Konoha now has a good understanding of Raza's ability. Of course, Ryo had some credit. In the manga, Raza didn't show much of his power, but now that he saw him in battle, Ryo was really impressed. His power was scary. In his past life, when he saw the gold release used in the anime, Ryo thought that only a mad tyrant would want gold as a weapon. He also thought that a user of such skill would never be short on money. Ryo explained Raza's ability in the meeting. His explanation reminded Jiraiya of Fukazaku's words on Raza's attack. But even after determining what kind of special gold Raza was using, Konoha's camp was still in a pinch. Even when knowing that it was gold dust, they still can't find a way to counter his ability as long as he's fighting in the Yellow Sand Desert. After the discussion, Ryo returned to his team. The medical team had a great role in this battle. If it weren't for them, no one would know how many of Konoha's ninjas would have been lost to the sand's poison. Over the course of the following few days, both camps stayed on the safe side. The sand ninjas were afraid of Jiraiya's Sage Mode, and Konoha's ninjas couldn't find a way to counter Raza's Gold Dust. Both sides were cautious and did not want to act rashly. During those days of rest, Ryo was thinking about both medical ninjutsu and modern medicine from his world. One of the things that he's always wanted to do was to improve the Naruto-verse medical ninjutsu system. Here, medical ninjutsu relies mainly on chakra. Once a medic is out of chakra, medical ninjutsu is no longer usable. Should a ninja in that case just watch as his companion bleeds to death? Ryo wanted to pass on the modern medicine knowledge he had learned in his previous life to the medics of Konoha's hospital so they could save people regardless of their chakra levels. However, because of his inability to explain the origin of such knowledge, Ryo gave up on that idea. But now that he's on the battlefield, and there's this severe need for more medical knowledge, Ryo decided to pass on some basics to his team. In the area where Konoha's medical squad was located, Ryo established a teaching area. In the beginning, the medical ninjas did not have much interest in Ryo's modern medical knowledge. In their view, if this knowledge doesn't allow them to quickly heal an injured ninja and restore his ability to move, then it's of no use. But as Ryo went deeper into the topics he was teaching them, they started realizing that what he was talking about was not so simple. In this way, the team learned the basics Ryo was teaching them, and he was able to complete the first step towards his goal of spreading his medical knowledge from his past world. As days passed, the sand couldn't just keep watching and they started to harass Konoha's once again. Sakumo took countermeasures against the sand's little tricks. There shouldn't be much risk in doing that, as any poisoned ninja will now have a medical team to save him. Sakumo-san. Jiraiya-san has made an ambush and just caught a sand ninja. The sand ninjas were harassing the camp for many days, and this is the first time one of them is caught. Sakumo quickly informed Ryo. For a Yamanaka like him, the enemy's brain can give so much information. Chapters 56, Intelligence. Ryo was teaching the medical team when he received a message telling him to go immediately to Sakumo's tent. Ryo, you're here. This is a sand puppet master who has been just ambushed by Jiraiya outside the camp. See what kind of info you can get using the secret arts of the Yamanaka clan. Ryo nodded and put his palm against the sand ninja's forehead. His consciousness entered his mind. From his memories, Ryo learned that his name was Shanyu. He was one of the elite jonin of his village, and a blue secret technique puppet master. The puppet division of the sand is divided to 4 grades, black, blue, white, and red. Kanjuro in the manga was just a black grade puppeteer during the Chunin exam. Cho was a white secret master, and only Sasori of the red sand was a red grade puppeteer. This is a master of the blue secret, and a jonin. Jiraiya has caught a big fish. Ryo went more in depth into his Shanyu's mind. His impressive memories were all displayed in front of Ryo, who was quickly browsing through them to find something useful. Over an hour later, Ryo finally found information related to the current war. In Shanyu's memory, he was suddenly called out. The village held a meeting where all the jonins on the village gathered, and the disappearance of the third Hokage was announced. Afterwards, with support of the advisors Cho and Ebizo, the disciple of the third, Raza, was elected as the fourth Hokage. The first thing Raza did when becoming the new Hokage was declaring war. Ryo could see within the memory, how much hatred the Sand Ninja had towards Konoha. After the war began, and the Sand lost the first battle, the fourth Hokage gathered the jonins to discuss those events. Ryo continued to go through Shanyu's memories and found out his task, to harass Konoha's camp and spread chaos within it. From the memory, Ryo understood that Raza was afraid to attack because of Jiraiya's Sage Mode, yet could not just let Konoha's camp have peace and had to dispatch some of his skilled ninjas to harass them. He continued to look through Shanyu's mind and found 2 hidden memories. Usually, hidden memories are the last thing you would ever want to see. So initially, Ryo wanted to skip these 2 memories, but was afraid that he might miss out on some info related to the war. After some thinking, he decided to check them out. The first memory involved Shanyu and his wife, and the intimate moments made Ryo blush. The 42-year-old virgin was really embarrassed. The second one came in as a big surprise. It involved a secret mission given by Raza to Shanyu. Raza sent Shanyu to Konoha's camp. It wasn't only to harass the ninja in the camp, it was also to bury gold dust around it. After Ryo confirmed that there was no other useful memories within Shanyu's mind, his consciousness withdrew. Even though Ryo had so much spiritual power, 2 hours of reading through someone's memories are a lot of work. He had to rest for quite some time, and then he reported what he found out to Sakumo and Jiraiya. When they realized that the man captured by Jiraiya was a green-grade Jonin puppeteer, they had no doubt about the info that they have received from him. Sakumo-san, is it possible that Raza has buried the gold dust around our camp to sneak in? Jiraiya fought Raza, he knew how powerful his gold sand could be. It was absolutely necessary to prevent him from getting access to gold in his opinion. It is very possible. The thing is, we don't know a lot about him, and we don't know how he could attack the camp, said Sakumo. Sakumo-san, regardless of his plans, we should first dispose of the gold dust we have around the camp. Sakumo nodded, and called the Hokage clan ninjas. He gave them the order to locate and then melt all the gold dust that's around the camp. The sand will be moving soon. Ryo, there are no problems with the medical team, right? Sakumo asked. I am in charge of the medical team, so you don't have to worry, Sakumo-san. It was already late in the night when Ryo left Sakumo's tent. The Hokages who were inspecting the place found the gold. To follow Sakumo's order, they went out to find all the ninjas in the camp who excelled with fire release, including the Uchihas. In the village, the Hokage and the Uchiha clan usually don't get along that well. However, once in war, the two families were actually good at coordinating with each other. Well, even in war, they would still compete against each other, but that rarely leads to any conflicts. While Ryo was watching the gold being melted from a distance, one of the Uchihas suddenly looked his way. He looked shocked after seeing Ryo's face. The latter felt with his great senses that someone was approaching him from behind. He looked back, and saw Fugaku Uchiha, who looked absolutely stunned. Of course, Ryo knew pretty well who Fugaku Uchiha was. The father of Itachi and Sasuke and the next head of the Uchiha clan had also opened his Sharingan when looking back at the manga, but he wasn't shown using it. Ryo did not like Fugaku Uchiha, nor did he hate him. He is now just another Jonin, and Ryo wasn't in touch with him. Seeing how Ryo turned away, Fugaku immediately chased him and stood in his way. What's wrong? Ryo stopped and asked Fugaku. However, the latter did not answer, and just opened his Sharingan. Ryo was impatient and turned around and left. What? Seeing how Ryo was going away, Fugaku blocked his path. What the matter? I'm really busy. Can't you just say whatever it is you want to say quickly? Do you know who your father is? Ryo's eyes were startled looking at Fugaku. He had thought of many reasons why he would stop him, but he didn't think of this. You look so much like one of my clan members. You look very similar to him, especially in the eyes. Howie Uchiha, do you know him? What does that person have to do with you? Ryo wanted to leave, but he was afraid that Fugaku would speak out. He didn't want to disturb his mother's life. He is my cousin. His father and my father are brothers. Do you know him? Fugaku asked again. I don't know him. This world is so vast, and many people look similar to each other. I am a Yamanaka, Ryo Yamanaka. Yamanakas have blonde hair, why is yours black? Because my father is a Nara. Ryo has always used this argument to cover up the reason why his hair was black. Fugaku Uchiha stared at Ryo for a long time. He didn't look like he was lying. So he could only walk away with the doubts remaining in his heart. Chapter 57, Conspiracy. In the 2 weeks that followed Shanyu's capture, the Sand didn't send anyone to harass Konoha's camp. Even though Konoha didn't show any more vigilance, the Aberame and Hyuga ninja were constantly monitoring the Sand ninja on the other side. During this time, Ryo taught more modern medicine to his team, while he learned wind release jutsus from Jiraiya. Like Jiraiya said, Ryo had some talent for it. In just half a month, he mastered 4 C-class jutsus, 3 B-class ones, and 1 that was a class. The reason why Ryo worked on wind release was that he wanted to practice the futon, Raisin Shuriken in the future. After all, this was a jutsu that was developed jointly by both Minato and himself, so he had the right to use it. Every time Ryo thought of Minato's experiment with that jutsu in the Forest of Death, he was in awe. In the past, he spent a lot of time trying to solve the problem of chakra overuse that he had with ice release. Afterwards, he worked on mastering water release. After all, it was really clear for him that his ice release was the trump card given to him to survive in this world. Before mastering that skill, he didn't have time to focus on the Raisin Shuriken, no matter how powerful it was. But now that he solved the problems he had with ice release, and that the Sand Village are not making any moves, Ryo doesn't want to waste time. After all, the Battle of Konoha Bridge was approaching. Ryo wanted to save Obito, and that puts him in risk of facing Madara. Even if he was in his late years, he would be at least Kage tier. And then there's the Kyuubi's attack. If he saves Obito, that whole event will become really unlikely to happen. But in case Obito is still confused by Madara, then on that night, he should also be strong enough to save Minato and Kushina. Therefore, Ryo should make use of every second he has and practice. Jiraiya-san, Ryo-san, Sakumo-san is calling for you and wants you to go to him immediately. While Ryo was practicing in peace, he was summoned along with Jiraiya by Sakumo. It is worth mentioning that after the last battle, Konoha's ninjas started calling him Ryo-san. In this world, people worship the strong. So, after that amazing performance Ryo had in the last battle, everyone naturally had great respect for him. At first, Ryo felt that it wasn't right. But as time went by, too many people were calling him that and it didn't matter anymore. When Ryo and Jiraiya arrived to Sakumo's tents, 6 jonins and all representatives of the different clans were there. The two had seats waiting for them at the right and left-hand sides of Sakumo. When they sat down, he gave the sign to the Hyuga clan representative to start talking. Ladies and gentlemen, just now, the ninjas of our family have discovered that the sand ninjas were gathering. This might mean that they are preparing for something big. Sakumo-san, they're just gathering and we're making such a fuss about it, said the Uchiha representative. Actually, his words weren't just out of rivalry with the Hyugas. It is indeed true that the gathering of troops when in such a state is a normal thing that happens way more often than battles. Of course there's more than this. Shivi, tell us about what you found out. Like my bugs have told me recently, there were many traps and explosive tags set up by the sand in front of our camp and on the way to the field between us. Aberme words made everyone realize that the gathering was not so simple. It seems that the sand couldn't just stay away from battle and are up to launch their second attack. The sand's operation is beginning, and we should also be well prepared. Now that I've informed, you have the responsibility as representatives of your families to tell your ninjas and prepare with them for the next battle. Yes. Sakumo-san. Konoha's camp quickly entered the phase of war preparations, and soon they received the news that the Sand's troops have reached the front of Konoha's camp. Before you go in, you should be careful, Jiraiya. Rasen knows well how powerful your sage mode is, and yet, he chose to face us head-on. He should have found a way to deal with you. Sakumo said to Jiraiya, who nodded in agreement. He was also prepared for such an attack from Raza. Ryo, this time, we need you to be on the front with us. The medical team should be in the rear so there should be no problems. No problem, Sakumo-san. You don't have to worry. In the previous battle, Ryo played a crucial role in Konoha's victory. Without him, even if Jiraiya was able to suppress Raza, and even if Sakumo was able to beat Cho, they would have been able to change the fact that their men were outnumbered in a hostile environment that limited their power. But thanks to Ryo's use of Sage Mode, and his summoning of Gamahiro, Konoha's losses were limited by a great margin. So after the battle, Sakumo was able to really appreciate Ryo's value on the battlefield. It was clear for him that he was far more than a medic saving people in the back line. So now, in face of the Sand's second attack, he chose to go all out from the start and bring Ryo to the front. Sakumo-san, we are ready to go. Good. March. Sakumo issued his order, and over 7,000 of Konoha's ninjas went to the battlefield. Shivi Aberme has discovered the Sand's traps, so he and the Hyugas were in front getting rid of them. So you're coming out. Raza was looking the way of Konoha's camp. When he saw them getting rid of the traps, he had a strange smile of the corner of his mouth. Is there any problem on your side? He asked Cho. She did not speak, but nodded solemnly. Let's start this. Sand ninjas, charge! The fourth Kazekage issued his order and the second battle between the two camps broke out. This is the second time that Jiraiya's facing Raza, so he didn't hold anything back. When he entered the battlefield, he was already in Sage mode. Sakumo and Cho have faced each other many times. Against her puppets, he had his special method to break her down. Like before, it was all just a matter of time. To Ryo, everything looked just too familiar. This was too strange. Raza should know that they could not win this way. Why did he come again? Although he had his doubts, he knew that the situation doesn't allow him to overthink. He summoned Gamahiro, and went right in to face the Sans Jonin. Brat! Your opponent is us. Hugo and his companions were waiting for Ryo's appearance. Right then, the fourth Hokage and Cho began to work together. Raza tore a scroll and the two printed at the same time. A white sealed boundary appeared and enclosed the four of them from the outside world. TL note, the ones who are entrapped within the cage were Jiraiya, Sakumo, Cho and Raza. Jiraiya-chan. This is, Fukazaku stared at this summoning that came out of nowhere. 2 wasn't too solid. If they attacked it for 2 minutes straight, it should collapse. The problem was that Raza would never give them the chance to do so. Raza. Your target is Ryo. Sakumo stopped fighting and looked at the two with a heavy face. Yes. I'm not afraid to attack just because you managed to capture Shanyu. Today's traps were just a distraction to make you think that I had a way to deal with the Sage mode. I'll just keep on fighting you. Just to get rid of Ryo, you're actually willing to sacrifice some of your elite Jonins. Jiraiya couldn't believe it. Oh, if we can kill their brat, it would be worth the life of a Jonin. He's a genius, isn't he? Well, let's see if he's enough of a genius to survive Shikaku's wrath, said Cho with a sneer. Shikaku. When he heard Cho, Jiraiya became too anxious and wanted to attack. He used Otamura's Nan to take down the summoned boundary, but it was unscathed. It's useless, Jiraiya-chan. We should keep on attacking one point of that wall simultaneously for at least 2 minutes to take that boundary down. Now we can only try to deal with the fourth Hokage, and hope that Ryo-chan will be alright. Hearing Fukazaku's words, Jiraiya didn't argue, and he decided to beat the fourth as quickly as possible. Chapter 58, Bunpyaku. Ryo did not realize what the sand had in store for him. He was actually more worried about the situations of Jiraiya and Sakumo. The barrier has isolated the 4 cage tier warriors who were on the battleground. There must be something bad they Raza had planned. Kid, if you have time to worry about others, you're better off worrying about yourself. Hugo's voice interrupted Ryo's thoughts. When Ryo summoned Gamahiro, he was surrounded by several elite Jonins of the sand. However, he didn't worry too much. He has his ice mode, and some of Konoha's Jonins have arrived to fight on his side. Hugo. You're going lower and lower. 6 Jonins gathering to bully a child? Now, people your age are here to teach you a lesson. Uchiha-chu, his clan's third head was there, and he was also the Uchiha's representative at the pre-battle meeting. Hugo did not expect Konoha's Jonins to actually be so fast to react and come to team up with Ryo. Don't be so arrogant, kid, someone will take care of you. Hey, this brat is all yours. Don't forget what Chobie-san has said. Hugo's words made Ryo notice the old monk behind the 6 sand Jonins. His thick eyebrows and mustaches were all white, with his hands clasped together and his eyes closed. Ryo looked at this old monk for a moment and then his face changed completely when he remembered who he really was. This seemingly kind old man was actually the one-tailed Jinchuriki. When he saw Bunpyaku, Ryo immediately understood why Raza trapped the 4 powerhouses behind that barrier and went through with the seemingly unwinnable fight. It's not that he's found a way to beat Sage mode. It was actually because Ryo was the target in the first place. Child, what's your name? Cho just told me to kill you without even giving me your name. Bunpyaku has a kind smile as he looked at Ryo. My name is Ryo Yamanaka, a Konoha Chunin. Ah, you're Konoha's genius they were talking about. It's a pity that I promised Cho. I must kill you, sorry child. As soon as he finished his words, his body started oozing with red chakra, and it started to look familiar to Ryo who was used to fight Kushina. In the manga, Gaara never used this mode. Ryo also thought that Shikaku could only be used with partial transformation or with the use of feigning sleep technique. He did not expect that Shikaku could be used this way like the other bijus. As this was the one-tailed beast, the mode could only go up to 1 tail. This made Ryo appreciate Kushina's colossal power. Unlike Kushina when she uses the tailed coat mode, Bunpaku's speed didn't seem to be enhanced that much. What changed was his attack method, which revolved around using sand, just like Gaara in the manga. How terrible it is, fighting an enemy that controls sand in a sandy desert. Gamahiro's massive body became nothing but a living target, and Ryo had to get down from over his head to face his opponent. But Ryo was going into the fight with a straight face. Observing Bunpaku's attacks, he realized that it took him anywhere from 1 to 2 seconds between attacks before he could release them. In the desert, sand is everywhere, and that's his foe's greatest advantage. But sand weighs a lot. It takes a good while for chakra to move a pile of it after another. Ryo entered the ice-lighting chakra mode. Between his great perception brought by his family's training and the great speed that's brought with this mode, Ryo could just avoid all of Bunpaku's attacks. He avoided over 10 of his enemy's attacks, but he knew that should not work forever. When all is said and done, his enemy is a Jinchuriki. How long could Ryo last by just running and hiding? The situation became really stagnant, and that doesn't help Ryo. He is sure to run out on chakra before his foe. He didn't want to sit back and wait. He kept on trying to attack while looking for Bunpaku's weaknesses. Hard work pays off, and Ryo found what he was looking for. Bunpaku was standing still every time that released a jutsu. The reason for that is that he was slow when it came to forming seals, as he wasn't trained by ninjas. It took him about 2 seconds to release a jutsu. If interrupted, that would make for a guaranteed 3 seconds where he does nothing at all. Hero, I found his weakness. I'll attack him, and when I tell you, use water release, gunshot to attack him. Ryo said that really loud. There wasn't only Gamahiro that heard that clearly, there was also his opponent, Bunpaku. The latter didn't believe any of Ryo's words. After all, no ninja would announce his tactics so loudly. He was very confident in Shikaku's absolute defense. Even two-tailed coat is non-damageable by ordinary ninjas. That's exactly what Ryo was relying on. No ninja would shout out his combat plan. He knew well that while Bunpaku wouldn't be shaken by his words, Gamahiro would still prepare himself to attack on his command. The next time Bunpaku attacked, Ryo shouted out loud, "Hero, attack!" Hero's water gunshot had exactly the impact that Ryo had imagined. His foe was completely focused on forming his seals. By the time he noticed Hero's attack coming, he had no time to avoid it. Freeze! Ryo froze the great masse of water, and a huge water ball fell from the air. The Ichibai is a tailed monster claimed to give his owner an absolute defense. When hit by that huge ice ball, only the coat had serious damage done to it, while Bunpaku had a minor injury. Bunpaku wiped the blood from his mouth and had a glimmer of madness show up in his eyes as Shikaku started to take over his mind. The relationship between the two of them wasn't that bad. At the very least, Shikaku didn't interfere with Bunpaku's fighting when in war. But the thing was, Shikaku's chakra thrived when its Jinchuriki had more negative emotions, and those erupted inside of Bunpaku when he was injured. His body started slowly changing just like Gaara's in the manga, and he went into partial transformation. However, Ryo was actually getting him there on purpose. The ice ball's wreckage was right behind Bunpaku, and Ryo used it to teleport behind him. He then used a kunao to hit him from his blind spot with 1,000 years of death. Obviously, Ryo remembered that Naruto was able to use this technique in the manga to break Gaara's partial transformation. Now, using the same principle, Ryo was also able to do the same thing to Bunpaku as well. I didn't expect you to see through the blind point of Shikaku's partial transformation. Just like Raza said, you have a special teleportation technique, you are great kid. Bunpaku was showing his sincere admiration for Ryo. Do you want to continue? Ryo's chakra had already bottomed out and he had to take a food pill before asking that question. Oh, I promised Cho that will definitely kill you. Yet, it seems that I can't do it. So, let's bring out Shikaku. As he finished his words, Bunpaku closed his eyes. Chapter 59, Shikaku. Shikaku, he's all yours. Feigning sleep jutsu. As Bunpaku closed his eyes, the desert's sand began to gather around him. Soon after, a gigantic creature that's even more massive than Gamahiro was on the battlefield. Shikaku's body was just like sand in color. It looked like a giant tanuki with dark violet markings on its body, and a huge tail that throws off massive amount of yellow sand. Hey Ryo! Shikaku is out, this won't be fun. In terms of stature, Gamahiro wasn't too fat off Shikaku. but the gap in strength between the two was immense. Oh yeah. After all, this is a tailed beast. If we're not careful enough, we'll probably end up dying, said Ryo with a heavy face. Hugo. You're using a tailed beast against a kid. Seeing Shikaku, Uchihachu's face changed greatly. Ryo was really strong, especially when he had Gamahiro on his side. But he was by no means an opponent to the Ichibai. Haha, that's the fourth Kazakuge's plan. This can only end in one way. That kid must die. His death is worth any sacrifice. Looking at Hugo's madness on one hand and at Ryo on the other, Chu was only able to pray for Ryo's survival. Ha ha ha. I'm finally able to emerge. With its arrogant laughter, Shikaku woke up. Feeling the beast's frightening chakra, Ryo's face was getting paler and paler. Before facing it, he didn't think that the Ichibai would be too strong for him to deal with. After all, Naruto and Gamabunta were able to dispel feigning sleep jutsu while holding off Shikaku's attacks. However, what Ryo missed is that Gaara, who was the Jinchuriki in the manga, wasn't at all in good terms with his Baijuyu. They were more like fire and ice. Even though Gaara used the feigning sleep jutsu back then to unleash Shikaku's full power, he was still suppressing its full potential. However, Bunpyaku and Shikaku have been together for decades. With time, they learned to get along, and Bunpyaku was trusting Shikaku's absolute defense far more than Gaara. This makes it possible to get his Baijuyu's full power by using the feigning sleep jutsu. This is absolutely far more powerful than what Naruto had to face. Ha 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 ha, I shall celebrate my emergence, and that will start by killing you, kid. Futon, air bullets. Ryo, get off my back. Water release, gunshot. Gamahiro told Ryo to run and attempted to counter Shikaku's attack. In the manga, Gamabunta's gunshots were able to hold off some of Shikaku's air bullets. But here, Gamahiro's gunshots weren't able to deflect them. He saw that his water gunshots were being scattered, so he quickly jumped. Ryo also moved quickly to save himself. Ryo. What should I do? It is too strong. I don't know, in front of the absolute power of Shikaku, I don't think that anything that we would do could have much of an effect. Ryo answered with a grim face. Ryo, how about your ice? That won't work, here in the desert, I don't have enough water to do something big enough. You have all these men. Can't you Yamanaka ninjas transfer messages into the minds of your troops? Get them to use water release to help you out. Gamahiro's proposal gave Ryo a way to get huge amounts of water. This is a great idea. With enough water, Ryo can go for what he has always imagined. Hero, I need you to buy me some time. This one is too strong, I don't know how long I'm going to last. After reaching a consensus, Gamahiro pulled out his swords and jumped in to fight Shikaku. On all levels, he was absolutely incomparable to it. Ryo left his state of ice elementization and went for Sage mode to intensify his perception abilities. He used his clan's technique to connect himself to all the ninjas on the battlefield. He was in too much of a pinch to try to distinguish between those of Konoha and those of the sand. All Konoha shinobis. His sound rang across the minds of everybody on the battlefield, making them pause for a moment. I am Ryo Yamanaka, and I am now fighting against the sand beast, the Ichibai Shikaku. Right now, I'm in desperate need for your help. Please, in 10 seconds, everyone near the center of the battlefield use water release. Right as he finished his words, Ryo cut the connection. Even when in Sage mode, it was still very taxing for him to send a message to so many people at one time. He went back into ice mode and fully released his yin seal. 10 seconds should be enough time for Konoha's ninjas to prepare themselves and for Gamahiro to retreat. I don't know what he wants to do, but he's just asking for water jutsus. I don't think that would be a threat to Shikaku, and it should cost our enemies chakra. That's what most sand ninjas were thinking. They didn't try to interfere with Ryo's plan. On the other side, Konoha's ninjas were seeing the great battle against the monstrous Shikaku in the middle of the field, and felt sorry for Ryo. Now that they know that they could help him, they all prepared themselves. In 10 seconds, water was released in overwhelming amounts towards Shikaku. Gamahiro jumped away before the attack and Shikaku looked at them ninjas on the battlefield disdainfully. Freeze! With the help of the natural energy coming from the yin seal, Ryo was able to successfully freeze all the water, and huge amounts of ice fell on Shikaku's body, getting it all riddled with holes. The beast was wounded, and Konoha's ninjas rejoiced. The Sand Ninja were in disbelief. After all, they've thought that Shikaku's defense was absolute. Sure enough, it was still in the desert. Sand gathered around it, and holes in its body were repaired. You brat! That actually hurt. How dare you! Futon, air bullets! Shikaku was angered by Ryo's attack, and it started spitting out immensely powerful air bullets his way. Ryo hurriedly controlled the ice, making a powerful ice wall protecting him. The ice in his wall was fortified with natural energy, so the air bullets didn't have much effect on it. Ryo, this will not stop it. It's a Biju. It won't run out of chakra anytime soon, and your ice wall will be destroyed sooner or later. Gamahiro was worried as he said that. I'm preparing for a new technique, one that I've never used before. It's just an idea, and it takes some time to be prepared. All I can do now is relying on this ice wall. What technique could ever deal with Shikaku? Are you sure you can pull it off? I am facing a Biju, so I can never be sure that I'll be winning. But if pull this technique, even if I don't beat it, I shouldn't lose to it. Gamahiro knew Ryo well enough to understand that his words are never hollow. Since he was so confident, Hiro chose to believe in him. As the ice wall continued to be bombarded by Shikaku, it started to crack. However, Ryo still had his eyes closed and Gamahiro was getting worried. Hey! The moment that the wall was shattered, Ryo opened his eyes. Ice around him began to gather. Gamahiro felt that natural energy around him was pouring with an insane rate into the ice, and felt something that was about to erupt from within it. Ice Colossus. Chapter 60, Ice Colossus. As Ryo shouted out the name of his technique, Gamahiro felt that the pile of ice was being given life. He felt that it had a pressure like that of a fearful creature. Obviously it was just a pile of ice, but the immense pressure it had was almost suffocating to Gamahiro. This pressure was different from that brought by a tailed beast. It was closer to the fear that a child has when seeing a dignified elder. He didn't know that this technique was one never used before in this world. It was inspired from a Taoist magical technique that Ryo saw in previous life. It was based on a state called the Way of Heaven. The first time that Ryo saw this technique was when he watched the cartoon Journey to the West, and saw the fight of Sun Wukong and Erlang Shen. The two of them fought using that way. At that time, Ryo as a child was really interested in this magical technique with which the Monkey King became taller than a mountain. Because of this interest, Ryo read quite a few books on Taoism before crossing over. After crossing over to the world of Naruto, Ryo became too busy with working on his strength and forgot all about the Way of Heaven. It wasn't until Kushina made him meet Kurama that he thought about it again. That was caused by the feeling of powerlessness that he had before the immensity of the Kyuubi. However, when in Konoha, it was never convenient for Ryo to explore that topic again. He could only cast aside that idea. However, the pressure of the moment and the need to get stronger made Ryo decide to take the risk and resort to that technique that he never tried. The Way of Heaven was a state mentioned in Taoist ancient records, and its fundamental aspect was Tao. Far from being a Taoist priest, Ryo wasn't able to understand what this so-called Tao was. All he could do was work on combining his energy with nature's. When Ryo enters ice elementization, he becomes ice himself, and a part of nature. What he tried to do was making himself the center, and blending his energy with that of the ice around him to make it an extension of his own body. His consciousness, the ice, and the natural energy, all three were fused to create an ice giant with Ryo in the center of it. Ryo's consciousness and body were integrated with the ice giant, and he was controlling it like it was his own body. On the other side of the barrier, Jiraiya, Fukazaku, and Shima all sensed the incredible gathering of natural energy outside. "Boss, Eni-chan, what's happening outside there?" Jiraiya couldn't tell what was happening on the battlefield. He was only able to ask Fukazaku, who had superior perception abilities. "I don't know, I just sense natural energy accumulating outside, and this accumulation is making me feel a little dizzy." "Ma is right, this force is terrible," Fukazaku said with a heavy face. "We don't know what's happening with the kid, boss. We should work harder in here." Jiraiya was worried about Ryo's safety, and he felt more of a burden put upon him. Raza was no longer able to fight back, he was just barely able to resist him. On the other side, Cho's shape was no better. Outside the barrier, Ryo felt that he has become an ice giant. But to everyone else's eyes, it looked like Ryo became huge in size, and was covered with a layer of ice. That was due to the fact that Ice Colossus looked just like him. Hey Choki! Ryo is a Yamanaka. How come does he have the skills of an Akamike? The representative of the Nara clan asked their Akamike companions. Rock, you should ask Ryoko. She's a Yamanaka so maybe she knows. As Choki, the Akamike representative finished his words, he went right back to fighting his sand opponent. How would I know? But from the looks of it, it seems like this is a huge ice sculpture that he's made. Said Ryoko, who was the Yamanaka representative. Hey you three! Is this a new hidden technique that your alliance has developed? How come we never saw it before? Asked Chu Uchiha. After the three looked at each other, Rock Nara nodded. Using the Akamashi secret technique, without being fat. The Uchiha murmured and just went back to fighting. Without going over all the reactions of the ninjas on the battlefield, Ryo's confidence was boosted greatly as well after his success with this technique, and he was able to feel the immense power that it held. Shikaku didn't understand why Ryo became so big, it just felt that what happened was really threatening. Futon, air bullets. Against Shikaku's powerful air bullet that was aimed towards the ice colossus head, Ryo just used the open palm of its hand to stop it. What? Shikaku was startled by Ryo's move. It never thought that anyone would take his attack with such ease. Ryo started forming seals and went for moving in fast on Shikaku using the lightning chakra mode. It was at that moment that he realized that he can't use ninjutsu when using Ice Colossus. Moreover, as he was one with the giant, he was able to clearly perceive that the natural energy held within it was beginning to dissipate. At this rate, he should be able to maintain this mode for no more than 5 minutes. Time was running out and all he could do was run at Shikaku. He went towards it, and threw a punch at its belly. It was a direct hit. Ryo never expected that Ice Colossus fist would hold so much force. Same goes for Shikaku that was brought down by the punch. Ryo went ahead and threw punch after punch at Shikaku until its body was hammered with a dozen large holes. Ryo, stop playing around, and just wake up the old monk. You see how many of Konoha's ninja were lost already. Gamehiro's words made Ryo wake up from the terrible power drunkenness that the Ice Colossus gave him. How good this felt didn't matter, what mattered was the lives of the Inoshikacho and the rest of Konoha's ninjas. Ryo took a shot at Shikaku's head, throwing away Bunpaku. The intense pain woke him up and Shikaku dissipated. Seeing the Ichibai disappear, Konoha's ninja all excitedly cheered. The sand ninjas felt that they were as good as dead seeing Ryo running toward them. Ryo wasn't looking to attack them, he just wanted to destroy the barrier and save Jiraiya and Sakumo. Upon reaching the barrier, Ryo punched it vigorously. After about a dozen punches, cracks were beginning to appear all over it. When Gamahiro arrived after him, he saw what Ryo was doing and he joined him in hammering the barrier for nearly a minute, and it finally broke. The fighting of the people inside the barrier stopped, and the fourth Kazekage and Cho both looked at Ryo realizing that they were in a really bad spot. They went to flee, and Jiraiya and Sakumo were both too stunned to pursue them. Kid, that accumulation of natural energy turned out to be you? How did you manage to do this? Jiraiya asked Ryo. But he had no way to answer, he could only make a helpless face.